We're going to go ahead and get started. Can I please have a motion to return to open session?
I move to return to open session.
Second.
And can we get a roll call or any discussion? Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Anna?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Carla?
Aye.
Renee? Brianna?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. So the open session of the May 25th, 2023 governing meeting will now come to order. Laura, can you please call the roll?
Anna?
Here.
Corey?
Here.
Gary?
Here.
Carla?
Here.
Renee? Brianna?
Here.
Amy?
Here.
We have quorum.
Okay. Thank you. So during May, we get to celebrate. We have a lot to celebrate here in Woodland in May. We'll start with the Teacher of the Year finalists. They're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So will the Teacher of the Year finalists please come forward and lead us in the pledge? Here. Thank you, and don't go too far because we have some things for you. Point of order. I think we're over capacity.
So we got 80 chairs only, standing only is what, 130?
110.
110.
Chairs and standing 110.
We've got 25, 55.
So to acknowledge your accomplishment, the Board of Education and Administration have a small token of our of congratulations and a certificate to honor you being your school's finalist for Teacher of the Year. So when I call your name, please come forward, and then we'd like to get some pictures, please. First, Trisha O'Neill.
Point of order, please. I think we're over capacity. Can we check the capacity, please?
Yep.
It's 110.
You're losing some people when this is done, if that helps.
It looks like we're about 105. Maybe actually less than 100. Okay, all right. We're like 99. A mix of seating, standing.
All right, and next we have Danny McLaughlin. And Kim Kohler.
She's going with the teacher. She's going with the teacher, paraprofessional, and bus driver.
And now can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Corey?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Carla? So we'll do Carla absent. Renee? We're approving the agenda, Renee. Yes. Brianna?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. And our, next up, we have the superintendent report.
Thank you. To continue our celebrations, I have the honor of announcing and celebrating our District Teacher of the Year as well as our paraprofessional, and a new recognition this year is our Transportation Driver of the Year. So, Gloria, I know you just settled back in, but we need you back up. So, Gloria Tanucci-Frank, everybody. Gloria was honored by the staff and students at the middle school to earn this honor, and she was also recognized at a May 8th Village Board meeting, and we're proud to recognize her today, and I will tell you I'm honored to have all of you as colleagues, and Gloria, as a middle school person at heart, thank you for everything that you do. I appreciate it. Next up, so the Lake County Regional Office of Education began recognizing our non-licensed staff members, and last year they recognized our awesome health office and nurses. This year the county recognized our paraprofessionals and teaching assistants across Lake County, and we are thrilled to have with us tonight Kelly Peters from primary school. Kelly? And stay, yeah, because there's, and Stacy, we get a grab a picture. Michelle Seiler from elementary. And Jean Carroll from middle school. And I also want to acknowledge Carol Rohr from Intermediate, who is not here tonight, but amazing nonetheless. So thank you to all of you. And we have our first ever Transportation Driver of the Year award winner. That's Mr. Joe Wenner. Thank you, Joe. The next section of the superintendent's report is to honor our colleagues who are retiring from Woodland after several years of service, and want to say thank you to all of you. In all, there are 21 Woodland retirees with a combined number of service years of 438 years to Woodland. So thank you all so very much. And honored to have representing that group tonight, Margaret McGuire. Names first, okay. Don Proft. Scott Snyder. And Julie Venus.
more. Can I, someone who wants the sign-up sheet for the citizens.
That's a lot of mushrooms.
All right, we'll take a few minutes break to let everybody get where they're going, and we'll do some pictures out in the hallway. So we'll come back at 7:20. Oh, there's cake. Yay.
Should help with that.
Yeah, should have said that first.
I didn't go like this at one time. Huh?
You know you did.
I might have.
Oh, those are so cool. Thank you. How does this girl come? She comes over to my house.
Really? Does she
Going
do?
places. No, she does nails.
No, I know that, but do you tell her what to do, or does she just kind of?
This set, no. I just let her do whatever.
And then, very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm like, just do whatever. I'm getting ready to go on vacation. Fun.
Yeah. Where are you going on vacation?
I just went to Myrtle Beach to go see my dad. Well, we really went on a sibling trip.
Okay.
And then we ended up seeing the parents. But they wanted to monopolize all our time.
There's Pepsi. Sam's Club did not have any Coke.
I'll get it. Okay.
Where did she go? She went. Sitting there. I don't know where he went.
I have a Ricola.
Yes. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started again, please.
Oh, it's a mixed weather in here. Sometimes I'm sweating, sometimes it's too cold.
Okay.
I'm learning.
Guys, we're going to go ahead and start again.
cool over here,
The board invites members of the public to provide citizen statements. I know we do have some tonight. So you can sign up online prior to the meeting or on the sign-up sheet that we have here. Just want to remind you that you have 2 minutes and that the board won't be able to respond to you right away, but we will listen to your comments. 2 minutes, and Mr. Chris Bobek here is going to give you a hand sign when you've got about 10 seconds, so we don't want to cut anybody off mid-sentence. All right. First person is Sharon Andy. Go ahead, and please say your name and your affiliation with the district.
Hi. Hello?
That's good.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Sharon Ande, and I am the union president, but I'm also an 8th grade teacher in the district, and I have 2 kids actually 3, who went through Woodland. I have a current 6th grader. So today I'm here on behalf of the Woodland Federation of Teachers and Staff and the union. I want to thank all of you for electing to serve the staff, students, and families of our school community. It's a privilege to work alongside a dedicated administration, newly elected board members, and returning board members to make our school the best that it can be. The union believes that building an effective school culture stems from a positive partnership between the union, its schools, the board, and the community at large. With that said, our Board of Education can best represent Woodland Federation of Teachers and Staff, students, families, and community members if they are effectively involved in supporting our goals, shared decision-making, sharing feedback, and asking questions. If you know the Board of Education, the Board of Education sets educational goals and policies for the schools based upon state laws and community values or concerns. We implore you to join us further in our goals of creating behavioral expectations, consistently and effectively disciplining students who do not meet expectations, while also recognizing the majority of students who exhibit exemplary behavior. We hope you join us in our goal of establishing a learning environment that promotes, I'm trying to hurry. Stop timing for a minute. Okay. Establish a learning environment that promotes the importance of education, effort, and excellence. Reestablish a student center and culture of respect for teachers, staff, and fellow students. Help us establish expectations and boundaries for students' behavior in a school environment. Address start times and tweak them for intermediate by 15 more minutes. Have our staff members who are injured by students be covered by district days versus our regular sick days. Keep our class sizes smaller. The middle school has not ever really felt the new class size initiative. Please have hall monitors at intermediate. Have hazard pay for our paras.
Sharon, I'm sorry, I have to cut you off. It's been 2 minutes.
Okay, we need to add Kristen Murray to the list, then she'll read the rest of it.
Okay. All right, we'll do it. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
So these goals are as pertinent today as they've always been. These are goals I know we all share. The full development of every child. As we welcome our students back to the classroom this fall, we want you to know that we are committed to continuing to work with our families and students to provide the best educational experiences possible. We take great pride in working together and to help our students reach their fullest potential. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine, can I ask what's your affiliation with the district? Are you the teacher?
Next person, Carrie Iskavici. I don't know if I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. Carrie? No? All right, we'll move on. Carl Everett. Hmm? Oh, okay. Rashenda Peterson.
Hi, my name is Rashenda Peterson, and Hi, my name is Rashenda Peterson, and I have 2 kids. So I know students lack most executive functioning skills, but now less with COVID and social media. On top of that, our middle schoolers have less social problem-solving skills because of games, Snapchatting, and videos. In fact, taking videos of fights is what blocks the middle school halls. They don't know why or how they should evacuate, let alone prevent a fight. For safety, executive functioning, and higher learning, kids need rules and order and examples. Students need their parents to model executive functioning and appropriate behavior. Teachers and students need administration to model executive functioning by way of standards of behavior, good decision-making, communication with staff, and especially by a strong presence for whoever the teacher should really just send to the office for help, not in an emergency health situation only, as they've been told. In hiring a new principal for elementary and the 2 new assistant principals at middle, please hire from the outside, but do so carefully. Wait if you must hire someone consistent with good executive functioning who will communicate standards for behavior in multiple ways, strongly support parents and teachers for safety, find supports for them, and validate the importance of community clearly over pie-in-the-face contests. Someone outside, please. Use the process of hiring to get more ideas, how to improve safety first, and then improve the executive functioning of our kids to resolve other social, behavioral, and hopefully somehow actual academics. Thank you.
Next we have Tracy Mann.
Hi, I'm Tracy Mann. As a member of the union for 21 years and a former parent in the district, I come tonight to address the safety of the students, teachers, and staff at Woodland. The things that are happening in this district are not okay for anyone. The behaviors of students are impacting the safety and learning of other students. Students are verbally assaulting adults and students at the middle school daily. Some of the things students say are F you, you're a racist, and more. Students are fighting, but the correct term is battery, as we have learned from Officer Hansen. There have been many assaults and battery within our district this year. I personally have been assaulted and battered this year at the middle school. I got hit in the face while breaking up a fist fight between the girls. I sustained cuts and bruises from breaking up this fight. School is supposed to be a safe place to come, and right now, students and teachers and staff are not feeling safe. The students and teachers and staff need your help to make changes and make our school a safe place for everyone. And we need the support of our community as well. Without the community getting involved and supporting us, we can't make these changes.
Kelly McBlain.
Hi, I'm Kelly McBlain, and I'm the mother of an 8th grader and a 6th grader and 2nd grader. When we moved to Gurnee 10 years ago, we were very excited about the Woodland schools, and until this year, I've been very happy with the education that my children have been receiving. This year, however, I've been horrified as my 6th grader and 8th grader have come home with stories of fighting and violence that they see and hear on a fairly regular basis. This added to my own frustration over the poor communication and organization that I feel coming from the administration finally made me motivated to speak up today. In listening to other stakeholders over the last few weeks, it is evident that parents, teachers, and students do not feel safe, heard, or communicated with. While some of the solutions that I heard last night at the meeting are a step in the right direction, there are many crucial components that I didn't hear that involve communication, leadership, teacher support, and creating a sense of belonging among the students. From the chaos that we experienced at Meet the Teacher at the beginning of the year that left my 6th grader feeling more nervous than reassured, to the lack of communication over a teacher that went missing from a classroom for several months at the beginning of the school year, to the lack of communication over the fight that occurred a few weeks ago involving Mr. Spada, it is clear that there needs to be a change at the middle school in communication structures and leadership. It is imperative that our students feel safe and that they are comfortable coming to school in a productive learning environment. I've heard a number of great ideas recently from the community that start with some things as small as improving communication systems with the parents and go as large as providing more support within the classrooms through paid professionals or potentially parent volunteers. Well, I've already had a chance to speak with many of the school leaders. I do hope that we can hear a response on how you plan to support the teachers in the classrooms, because they're the ones on the front lines. Create the sense of belonging among the students within the middle school. Hold the administration accountable for changing the culture with the tools you're going to provide for them. And find ways to measure success so that you can come back and tell the community that things are working. I plan to follow up throughout the summer so that I can reassure my 6th grader that he'll be safe when he comes back in the fall. Thank you.
Julie Hurd.
Hello, Julie Hurd, parent of 7th and an 8th grader. So why is Woodland so surprised about the behavior of the current 7th grade class? Their grade has been riddled with serious and significant behavior issues since kindergarten. Their teachers have never been given the tools they need to deal with the behaviors, and administrators kept sending the kids right back into the classrooms with no real consequences. Check in, check out never worked. It just taught kids they can misbehave in class and still get rewarded. Demerits don't work. My daughter says her teachers stopped giving them out because kids that deserve them don't care if they get them. Martial law for an entire grade doesn't work. The kids with behavior issues are still regularly disrupting classes, and now my daughter loses 10 minutes per day of her Spanish 1 Explore class, which negatively impacts her education. Disruptive behavior leads to entire classes not learning. My daughter said to me more than once, "Yeah, I was supposed to learn that topic, but didn't because my class was so bad that my teacher never even got to that topic." Adding more time to math and LA next year won't make a bit of difference in raising test scores if kids with behavior issues continue to constantly disrupt teachers trying to teach, and chaos in the classroom spills out into the hallways. The boy who spent the entire year disrupting my daughter's 6th grade math class, yeah, he was the kid who at the beginning of 7th grade slammed her into a locker, got in her face, and threatened her. The boy felt empowered because he could act that way. My daughter didn't bother to report it because they both knew he wouldn't face any consequences for his actions. The teachers need effective tools to deal with the behaviors in the classrooms, and administrators need to start imposing real and meaningful consequences on kids and parents if necessary to enact behavioral change. Until this happens, learning will continue to be disrupted, test scores will remain low, and hallways will remain unsafe for students and teachers alike. I would like a response for what new effective initiatives Woodland will be implementing next year, for my daughter will be 8th grade next year, to address student behavior. Thank you.
Nicole Kramer.
I've been a parent in this district for almost 15 years, and I have a current middle schooler. I'm here today to discuss the level of violence in the schools. First, I want to state that you cannot blame all of the current issues on COVID. This has been going on long before COVID, so please don't dismiss the fundamental concerns by just saying, oh, it was COVID. The change I've seen over the past 15 years has been dramatic. In spite of student population falling by almost half, the discipline issues have increased exponentially. Before COVID, my then 8th grade daughter was attacked, unprovoked, by a student who had a long history of violence, dating back to 1st grade. That student was arrested and finally expelled to an alternative school. But why had it taken so long to get that student away from other kids? Why had it taken so long to get this student into the placement that she desperately needed? When I asked my older teenagers what should be done about Woodland, they said that you needed to hire professional security and then expel all the kids causing the problems. Their frustration and anger at having their learning and safety disrupted daily is palpable. They are tired of it all. I attended the meeting last night by Dr. Bolton, who spoke of the need to work on issues with kids upstream, or at the root issues, such as trauma, mental illness, poor family environments, etc. I agree. However, that kind of work will take years to bear fruit. In the meantime, how are you going to protect all the kids and teachers downstream? Dr. Bolton talked about toxic communities. That is what our kids are living in daily right now with the current environment. How are you going to fix this toxic environment while waiting for the upstream help to work? Our kids are tired of waiting for your help.
next we have Tim Cisco. Cisco, sorry about that.
Hello, my name is Tim Ciesco. I have a 7th grader who was assaulted a month ago today at your school. I'm going to give you the day. Woke up, went to school, was told the day before by a couple buddies that he should watch his back. So classes get out, enters the hallway. The assailant walks past him. As he walks past him, he knows everybody in the hallway stops and turns and looks. Waiting. He turns around, the kid's running at him. He walks away. The kid slaps him on both sides of the head, causing scratches and gouges to his eye. Punches him in the back of the head. Falls to the ground and continues punching him. A teacher needs to come get this boy off of my son. And in the process, the teacher is hurt and has to miss school. Since this incident, I have had no phone call or anything from any principal or whatever. 2 days after the incident, my son was threatened by another bunch of kids getting on the bus that he's going to get his butt kicked. Called the principal, nothing's happened. Have a police report, nothing's come of that. Then my son comes home today and tells me that the kid who has been suspended is Snapchatting with drugs and paraphernalia and weapons and saying he will come back the last day of school and kick my son's butt again. My question to you is, what's going on here? The cops are telling me the only people who could solve this is you. They can't do anything. The board needs to make the decision. Now, I don't know. In the papers, it said it was a fight at the school. It was not a fight. It was an assault. Then the teacher got assaulted. It's assaults. And nothing's happening.
Christine Cederberg.
Hi, I am a parent. I am also a certified teacher, and I'm currently a substitute in the district. I have been working in the middle school mostly of the last couple of months. I just want to say that you have you have great teachers who go above and beyond, and I'm in awe to this day how they do it. Today, subbing, it broke me. I cried. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take the swearing at me, the disrespect, just nobody listening. My son, who's in 7th grade, is scared to go to school. He says it's hard to learn. There's so much chaos. There's so much fighting. My son works hard. He is mostly a straight A student, but he's working hard, and it's really hard because he's getting distracted. There are times where he begs me not to go send him to school because he's scared. The fights, the disrespecting, the vaping in the bathrooms need to stop. There's kids walking in the classroom. You send them down to the office. They send them right back up. They can do anything they want. They can walk in, walk out. They can have their phones on. Nothing happens. A couple weeks ago, I reported a girl reported to me that there was weed in the bathroom. And so I called downstairs, nothing happened, that there was weed in the bathroom. And then about 20 minutes later, the girl came running to me that 5 girls are going to jump her. She's scared to death, so I write up the referral, write up the stuff I need to do. Nothing happened. The girls came back. A couple days later, there was a fight in the classroom, and they were going to jump her. To this day, she has to be escorted by a teacher, and something needs to happen. This is not, as a parent, this is not a school, how a school should be. And it's very hard. Thank you.
Thank you. And Janetta. I'm sorry, I can't read the last name. Go ahead.
Ann Janetta Freisen. I have a student, Taylor is here, and at the elementary school level. I apologize for the chlorine smell. We came straight from swimming. So I have been coming to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, specifically at the elementary school level. So I wanted to come. I've missed a couple of board meetings, well, actually a lot of board meetings, but I wanted to come and just kind of talk about some of the progress that I have experienced or been involved in as it relates to what's going on at the elementary school level. So Mr. Wahlberg and the equity team, so I had a couple of meetings with them, myself, a couple of parents. Did we meet? Stephen Thomas. Dr. Thomas.
It's in the back room.
Okay, met with Dr. Thomas to kind of understand some of the things that are happening kind of behind the scenes that are not so visible to parents, so that was very helpful. So I just want to say that I'm happy with the progress that I've seen. Now I'm kind of disappointed. Kind of the transition that's happening at the elementary school. I don't want to start from scratch, so I hope that whoever you are considering for that position comes in with the open mind, with the opportunity to make sure that parents are able to be included and being able to be put in positions to offer suggestions, recommendations, things along those lines. I also want to reconnect with the assistant superintendent. We had kind of had some conversations, me and a couple other parents, particularly the parents that initially started or was a part of the initial, there was a parent group that was started. So I want to see if we can kind of get that going again so that we can try to help and support and maybe catch some of the issues that I'm hearing about now at the middle school level. So thank you for your support and continue to keep diversity and inclusion top of mind as well. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. We are.
Excuse me, I have a statement. Hey. Good evening, everyone. I'm Carla Little, a board member, and I just wanted to voice some concerns that I had as well, because I'm worried that our board is whether or not we're operating as good role models for the district. And are we modeling the wrong behavior as a board? I feel that as a board, we have created a culture of bullying, bigotry, and physical assaults. I ask this as a board member because recently we elected to the president's position a board member who has been a bully and a bigot since running for the school board. And this behavior seems to be applauded by many in the community. She ran, I'm speaking of course of Anna Cheng Yin, she ran a dirty smear campaign with other like-minded individuals in the community that targeted only the black board member candidates. This resulted in one board member being singled out and bullied online. Upon joining the board, Anna broke ethics and Board of Education members' trust by sharing closed session information with others in the community to mount a misinformation campaign to cover up previous misdeeds to which Anna had previously admitted to initiating. While on the board, Anna continues to try to bully others into her opinion by initiating online campaigns against board members who do not share her views. Anna initiated a very serious, very personal and targeted campaign against a board member. She provided misinformation and lies to her friends and online followers, inciting them to write letters in support of her views to the board. She wrote the letters for the followers to send to the board.
Okay, Carla, that's 2 minutes. Thank you. We're going to move on to the
Okay, I'll finish my
consent
statement
agenda.
at the end of the meeting then. And I would like this to be You're right.
Okay, yep, let's take a 2-minute break.
And I would like
Okay,
my.
thank you. Carla, we're done.
I would like
for
my
now. We're moving
announcement
on
to
with
be
the meeting,
included for the
please.
record, please.
We're moving on with the meeting, okay? We're going to take a 2-minute break. Thank you, Renee. Yep. Sweet Jesus.
Huh? I do it before I get in. You get at 5:30 now.
You know?
Some people dress in winter.
Thanks. We're about to do that. We have everybody. Oh, lost Bob. And Chris. Chris? Yeah. He's coming. Yeah, I will.
We are not very far into
She's coming. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started again. Can you please take your seats so we can get
Work.
started?
I mean, it will work eventually.
All right. There had been some questions about signing up to give citizen statements at the end, so the sign-up sheet is back out. If you'd like to sign up, please do. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Carrie?
Here.
Carla?
Aye.
Renee? Brianna?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Hannah?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. So for our action items, we have approval of K-5 social studies. I'm sorry? So approval of K-5 social studies instructional materials and curriculum.
I move to approve the kindergarten through fifth grade social studies curriculum at-a-glance units.
Second.
Any discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Carla?
Aye.
Renee? Yes. Brianna?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Corey? Or I'm sorry, Anna?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
I move to approve the purchase of TCI Social Studies Alive, social studies, instructional materials, and other supporting nonfiction trade books at a cost not to exceed $240,000 for students in kindergarten through fifth grade.
Second. Any discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Renee? Yes. Brianna?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Carla?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item B is the approval of the parent-student handbook changes for 2023-24.
I move to approve the parent-student handbook for the 2023-24 school year as presented.
Second. Any discussion?
I would like to thank Dr. Walls and Dr. Machek for helping implement the changes to the middle school dress code to remove the gendered and minority targeting items in the list. I would also like to discuss the discipline matrix. I know that there are many people who think that our discipline matrix needs to be more punitive, and I am hoping that Dr. Machek, you might address some ideas of what might supplement the punitive.
Right, so, thank you, Ms. Pobbins. So going back to conversations that we've had administratively, and I think really kind of distilling those conversations through Dr. Bolton last night, there's I don't think the ideas of trying to have a school that's safe and orderly and promotes a culture of learning and respect is mutually exclusive with trying to give students who engage in these anti-social or violent behaviors. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think we can try to help those kids and their families and still send the message that using the kind of profanity that I hear, and it's not just one building, it's really a district issue, it's a community issue, it's a national issue, but we're focused on District 50. But using that language is not okay, fighting is not okay. You know, my frustration as someone new here is there's almost too many options and gray areas in these matrices. The fighting matrix for middle school is everything from a conversation with a student to up to 3 days of out-of-school suspension for a first offense. And I think that if we set an expectation that if you fight, you cannot be in our school, I think it would send the message to our students and their families that they need to help us, as we've heard parents and our colleagues talk about having parents as partners with us. I don't look at it as punitive, and really, as Dr. Bolton talked about last night, I think that a student who is, whether it's dysregulated or angry or has other motives than to come to our school to learn, sending the message that if you do that, you've taken away from our community and you can't be here. We've had a district-wide behavior, I didn't even know what to call it, a student behavior group, and we've met 4 or 5 times, and it's really been a very positive joint effort. I want to compliment Sharon Ande for her leadership in that group, but we've met 4 or 5 times to talk about the parts of this whole conversation that we can control. In one of our last conversations, we talked about how we could support a student even at home cooling off who needed to be sent home because he or she either initiated a fight or joined in once one got started. And when we talk about restorative practices, one of the things that we worked with the union administration and the union worked together starting this time last year was to create a reentry plan, which is really part of, legally, it's part of any suspension anyway, where if a student is out of school, when that student comes back, we're supposed to administratively have a conversation with his or her parents to talk about what's going to look differently. Like, how's this not going to happen again? What's going to be different now that you're back? And I think in a scenario where a student is sent home for fighting, a student and his or her family could start doing some of that heavy lifting the day or days that they are out. For example, writing letters of apology to the people they have harmed. Or perhaps if it's an issue of an interpersonal skill, right? We have web-based and asynchronous, whether the videos, talks, lessons that students and their families could access that could help address some of these issues so that when the student does come back, whether it's the next day or 2 or 3 days later, they're in a much better place and are ready to have that conversation about what's going to be different than sitting at a conference table with an administrator and kind of maybe thinking about some of these questions for the first time. So I think, you know, Dr. Bolton mentioned it last night, and Reverend Spicer, who's coming in August to work with our administrative team on restorative practices again. They both talked about this idea of community, but the restorative practices don't work if you haven't established a community. And I think it's hard to establish a community with norms and expectations and guidelines when it looks like anything and everything goes. And I think that to send the message to the kids who are just trying to get an education and trying to stay out of harm's way that you can come to school and not have to worry about this, I think the anxiety and the peace of mind that would provide those children and their parents would be huge. I also think that in terms of the structure for the kids who are engaging in these behaviors, I think knowing that there's going to be a firm and sure consequence for that behavior, in a weird way, I think supports those kids too, because they know what the consequence is, and they will certainly know the parameters that they need to follow, or the rules, the restoration they need to do to be able to get back. And I think sometimes now, those are sometimes maybe gray areas. So I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, because I saw the same data that everybody else did last night in terms of suspensions not working and recidivism rate of people who go to prison and all that. We're talking about 1 or 2 days to help a student figure out how to be in school better and more effectively. And there's other things that go with that, not just discipline. Right now we're talking about the matrix. It's interesting when you look at who these children are. Lots of them, they haven't gone with their peers since kindergarten. Some of them are brand new this year. Some of them are new as 6th graders. And I think then it's incumbent on us as the community to figure out how do we help these kids fit in. But I think we help them fit in after they've also done some work to say, look, I need to do something differently here also. And I think giving them a time to cool off and to be away from the community to think about those things, I don't see that as punitive, and I don't see it as damaging. I see it, if we did it the right way, I see it as helpful to all involved. And that's, for my recommendation, would be that we change that matrix to reflect that if students are engaged in a fight, they need to go home. I also think that a student who uses profanity towards a teacher as disrespectful in that way, I also think I would categorize as gross disobedience, and those students should go home.
Then no kids would be in the school. So I think that if we took the stance of, if you say a swear word, you're going to go home, I think that's kind of harsh. But here's why I think that's harsh. We have heard comments, and I'm not going to go into them because I don't remember all the people who made the comments. But all of the things we're saying are reactive. We have to be proactive. That's where the issue is coming in at, because by the time, if they come in and they are swearing at teachers and fighting and all those things, they don't care about the consequence, right? So in order for us to do something, we have to do it early on. So when a parent calls, we got to return the call. When they're giving us examples and they're saying, hey, my kid needs this resource or that resource, we have to be responsive, because had we been responsive in the past to some things, we wouldn't be here. And because we're here, teachers are getting hurt, administrators are getting hurt, because we, administrators and boards, we're not putting these things in practice. I don't want to be reactive. I don't want us to react because a teacher got hurt. I want us to be proactive so that when we see these kids having issues, we can deal with that. So the answer is not just sending them home. It's we have to fix what is wrong right now. And there is no way a parent should call us with an issue with all of the administrators here and we don't get back to them. And then we come back and we blame just the kids. That's not fair. That is on us. But what's also on us is we have to be more supportive of the people that's the boots on the ground in the classrooms. Because I wouldn't have teachers jumping in and breaking up fights. You got to ask SRO. They should not be doing that. I would not have administrators who are not properly trained jumping in, because otherwise they get hurt. And then they have to use their own personal time. And it's just too much. We have to figure out a plan to be proactive, just not reactive. It's fine to react, and if we have to punish, we punish. But if we get in front of it, we don't have these issues. And so I don't know what the answer is, but I know it's our job to figure it out, and that's what we got to do. Because once we do that, then we can move forward. We have parents who come into schools and go off. And we allow it. We don't do nothing about it. We don't call the police on them. We don't do anything. So that sets the tone. So that's what we have to fix.
I agree with you 100%. The challenge, and I just say, in my experience, I've not worked in a district where the consequences were laid out kind of like like in a cookbook. If you do this, then you do it. But just by the nature of the behavior matrices in the handbook, every one of them is reactive. I agree with you 100%. I
So
don't want
let's
to get there,
fix it.
but yes, I agree.
Let's fix it, because then they don't have to go through what they're going through, and maybe we won't have all these fights and things, because it sounds like a war zone. My kids are not in the school anymore, but it sounds like a hard day for anybody, and I think we can do better.
Agreed.
Dr. Minchuk, could you be more specific about which changes you would like to make to the discipline matrices?
The ones that Dr. Wallace and I changed, the changes we made based on feedback from the last meeting was we addressed the items in the dress code, which were geared, the board felt were geared towards a specific group or groups of students. And so we still have the guideline about what constitutes appropriate dress, but we took out some of the specific examples that really were geared more towards different kind of gender specific, or the certain type of clothing worn by one group or another. I also then, Ms. Amon pointed out where our policy, language in the policy did not match the language in terms of student interviews, and so where we said students will be interviewed in 2 different spots, we said students may be interviewed because the student and his or her family could decline to be interviewed. And then again, my suggestion is to the changes in the fighting matrix that a first offense is a home. We're calling it a home suspension, but working administratively and with our staff, again, I would not be sitting at home playing video games. There would be not only academic work, but social emotional work for that student or students to do while they were at home.
So that either restorative work or social emotional learning would be basically how you would put what's in the handbook into practice. So it'd be basically procedure.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the first offense is for fighting at grades 4 and 5, and 4 and 5 is in-school suspension, but 6 through 8 is out of school. So that's already in the handbook.
It runs a gamut from it's up to the administrator to determine whether it can be a 1 to 3 day in school or an out of school suspension.
Our handbook is specifically out of school, and restorative practices as needed at 6 through 8th grade.
1 to 3 days in school suspension is for grades 4 to 5.
So I
That's
guess
what it
that's
says.
part of our issue. Have we,
Dr. Little, what in the draft in the packet? What
Am I?
page are you on?
I'm on page 86.
Oh, right. That's because we made the change. I think that the handbook for this year has got the game. What we have in 86 is what we're recommending. That's not currently what it says.
Right, but, okay. Thanks.
I'm sorry. I think I'm not being clear. Right now, it's either an in-school or an out-of-school. What you have there is is my recommendation.
For out of school?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then you also mentioned for swearing?
Well, I mean, I think, again, not to be hypocritical, people who know me, sometimes a word slips, I probably shouldn't, but what I'm talking about is when you're up in, when a student is up in another student's or another teacher's face, dropping F-bombs and using, we've had a number of parents who responded to the online survey or the Google Doc talked about having their child had experienced racial slurs, and the student who had made them was, you talked to them and then you sent them on their way. I think that those types of things, and unfortunately I suppose it is a judgment call, but I do think there are times that words can hurt just as much as physical attack, and I think that the administration should have the leverage, or I'm not sure what the word is, to send a student who engages in that kind of language home if they feel it's warranted.
If they're in a teacher's face doing that, they should be sent home. But if they're talking to us, because they swear, so if they're talking to each other and they're like,
Of course.
yeah, whatever, okay, I can see that. But have we, and I don't think we have, sat down and said, because we get the same letters from everybody. So the letters I'm not too moved by because it's the same template. But have we sat down with some of the teachers, administrators, who said, tell us what you need.
Yes.
Let us tell us something, because maybe they have ideas that we could use, because it seems like we're out of ideas except for sending kids home and reacting. And I think if we're a little more proactive, everybody can have a better day throughout the course of the day at school.
Well, in terms of asking the question, and that's how these afternoon conversations, Sharon and I meet monthly to talk about union concerns and admin concerns. And these conversations that happen in this room that have happened, again, 4 or 5 times since spring break, people have been working in their grade level teams, and we've had transportation there, we've had O&F at these conversations, and actually our last meeting last week, we did, each group, each school came up with at least one idea that we could do proactively to solve some of this. And why that was really important is, number one, it's a solution, but the other part of it, and in teaching we talk about this idea of collective teacher efficacy, the idea that teachers feel that they can make a difference and positively impact children. And my challenge to the group and for all of us was that we need to have that same belief about this behavior issue. Because if we throw up our hands and say, well, it's the cell phones, it's the parents, it's society, it's all over, and we can't do anything about it, then like what chance do we have? And I still believe, and I wanted to see if together we could come up with one thing that we could do, whether it's on a bus or in a hallway or in a classroom, that we were in control of, that we could make it better. And every group came up with not only one thing, but multiple things. Some that we were already implementing in terms of restructuring hallway traffic patterns and staggering bell schedules and improving video cameras on buses, to things that we're going to put into place next year. That is some of the SDL things. I mean, I'm really excited, for example, at middle school that we will have an intervention period as part of the school day. Kids don't have to pick between getting math help and going to art, for example. And our CAS program, which has had has met with a great deal of success in 6th and 7th grade, we'll expand that to 8th grade next year. So, the idea of engaging kids, and kids who are engaged and kids who feel good about what they're doing in school, hopefully won't want to do some of these things that we're hearing about that they are doing.
Yeah, I do think some of it's cultural, as I stated in my citizen statement, with all the bullying and things that are, like I said, happening to even us on the board. But so I do think we have to be proactive. We have the same small group of students committing many of the repeated acts of misbehavior. So obviously, some of the things we're putting in place don't seem to have an effect on kids that have made up their minds to act this way. But my concern is for the safety of the children who don't misbehave, safety of all the children, but especially how do we ensure, stop all the violence and the misbehavior, but also without creating a prison-like environment where the kids, we're adversely affecting the kids who, do the right thing, come to school, are excited to learn, want to participate in all the extracurricular activities. When we put some things in place, like the way they're moving in the halls, I think was one of the examples that one of the parents gave in the letter, that these things, kids not being able to talk at lunchtime or see their friends at certain times, we're penalizing kids and harming their social emotional behavior to try to target a small group of kids, and targeting those small groups of kids are not working. Looking at this matrix, we have a matrix for everything. You know, inappropriate behavior, insubordination. You know, at the middle school, those are still offenses, first referral, that carry 1 to 3 days in school suspension. So we have this in place, but for whatever reason, it's not working. So it goes back to what Board Member Amin was saying. We have to be proactive and figure out how do we target those kids that are misbehaving and redirect them early in the school year. No parent should come before us and tell us that their kid is being repeatedly bullied, and the kid has been consequenced, and the kid is still able to threaten the student. That's just unacceptable behavior in this school district. Is unacceptable in this community. And so what, you know, again, what are we doing about these things? We keep hearing the same thing coming forward with no better outcomes. And we're scaring the kids who are really good kids and their parents. So I'd like to see something more creative on the front end. Even talking to, if we know that there's a group of kids that repeatedly act out, they're getting out of school suspensions, they're fighting, we need to talk to these parents. The parents need to come in. How do we hold them accountable? How do we put these kids in maybe remote learning, e-learning? Maybe they shouldn't be in school. I just think we got to be more creative up front and protect the kids so that they can come to school, have a very positive middle school experience, and they can learn and be ready for high school. We're affecting that. And to me, that's the most heartbreaking thing of all of this, because we're ruining these kids. Then, oh, I'm sorry, I have one more thing, because we keep talking about this, but I don't see a change. If a kid is putting up a camera, phone, during a fight, that kid should be consequenced.
All right, can we, Amy?
I just had something really.
Yeah, so what I'm not seeing are the consequences for that.
Amy? Some immediate things, in talking with a few trusted parents to just listen to what their student experience is at the middle school. One thing is, can we move support to Principal Drake for handling communications, immediate follow-up with parents? Is that something that's able to happen?
What do you mean? I'm not sure what you mean by move.
Is there any way to move staff or create more support for parent follow-up, someone who's authorized to speak for the school on these things?
So school-home communication.
School-to-home communication, yes, where people are calling directly about incidents and not hearing back, and can we provide support for Mrs. Drake to follow up with parents?
I think that's part of what was behind the administrative
But adding the
changes,
assistant,
right?
but I think, my hope is the additional assistant principals
There-
per grade level, having those 2 per grade level, that should, I mean, I would love to see improved communication,
Yes.
quicker communication, and then communication that shows that there's something happening.
Is there something we can do immediately to catch up on the call list? I'm not asking for answers right now, but I think that would help.
I hear the
Yes.
request, yes. Got it.
Also, there are good things happening at the middle school as far as there are no longer interruptions over the PA system dismissing 7th graders. They figured out how to ring the bells per hallway so that students are not interrupted during their learning. That's a good thing that I don't think has been communicated out to our district. So again, supports there, telling everyone of the good things that are happening. Also, there were 2 officers in the hallway, and they were great role models, and it was very positive for the students. And I think that's another comforting thing that needs to be communicated out. So just supports in that way, and parents were immediately comforted and glad to hear that. So I think that would help ease tensions. But I am aware of the citizen statements, and more needs to be done. But I think those are specific things that could be helpful if possible.
Can I just ask on the, so I'm assuming that swearing would fall under insubordination or disrespect, because it says, call any member of the school or district staff derogatory names, dishonor or abuse verbally or in writing. So for grades 6 to 8, on a first referral, 1 to 3 days in-school suspension, does that, an in-school suspension includes contact with the parent, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's actually somebody calling and speaking with the parent. Okay.
Can that be added to the matrix? Because there are places, like it's not on the matrix
Yeah, swearing.
to call the parents.
Oh, to call parents.
Well, it's part of the procedure with a suspension.
Okay.
Even in school suspension. So is your recommendation then is to change, I mean, what I was thinking is at grades 6 to 8, right now we have 1 to 3 days in school suspension. Could we make that a range and say that it could be an out of school suspension? Because obviously all incidents of swearing and verbally abusing a teacher are not the same.
Yeah, yes.
Well, and I
That
think
would- that
that's
would
where the, is it insubordination, disrespect, or is it gross disobedience? And that's going to come down to the specifics of what was said and tone.
Well, and the context to
Yep.
Ms. Simmons'
Yep.
point and everything else, yes.
Okay. So is that a change that we could all get behind? Board?
I mean, I think we should look at the handbook at a different, like, if we're gonna get into the specifics of it, I think this is a larger conversation that we should have more admin present for. Now, if we're taking the action item and voting on this, I think we could vote, how we feel, if it's ready to go or not. But like, if we're getting into the specifics, I think that's a larger conversation we're gonna have to have on the side.
Right. Yeah, that should be done more in a work group setting,
Yeah.
not at the board table.
But I agree, like, we obviously are seeing some holes in the plan as it is right now, so we should hold off on moving forward with it. At least that's my opinion on that one.
My understanding is that we need something to be in print for back to school, right?
Well, I certainly wanted to, yes, but I also want to be correct and something that will support our students and us, and I don't want it to be done just to be done. So I think administratively, if the changes that the board suggested last month and with the couple of additional ones that are in your packet, I certainly think that would be definitely a step in the right direction. But I've suggested to my administrative team is, again, I think if we looked at the context of something that's said, and typically, in terms of a student getting up in a staff member's face or such disrespect to a substitute guest teacher, something like that, I don't even know if you have to look at like the specific language versus calling it, it's threatening, it's harassment, it's dangerous behavior. I think we need to look at the impact that the behavior is having and not like the actual word that was said. I think if we started doing that, perhaps we could get closer to a more appropriate consequence. All the while agreeing that these are all something that happens after the fact and things that we should be putting in place so that they don't happen in the first place.
And I'm just looking at the gross disobedience and misconduct does have for a first referral out of school suspension. So if an administrator felt that it rose to that level, that is still an option.
Yes.
At this point. Okay. All right. Any further discussion about the handbook?
Not as much about the handbook, but kind of echoing what was said earlier, just about the practices that we're moving forward with. One of the big things I heard from last night that was the biggest takeaway for me was, and the kind of you guys were both saying it, was getting ahead of it. Like we have to get away to be more creative with how we're approaching the situation. I'm happy that we're updating our handbook. I'm happy that we're going to have consequences in place, but it's not going to solve the issue that we're dealing with right now. So I do think I'm looking forward to the more creative ideas, getting ahead of it. And the big thing that I came from yesterday was the belonging. Like, I think it is that we need to build a belonging for our students, for our teachers, for our community, and that's something that we've gotten away from over the past few years. I don't know what that's going to look like, again, but I do know it's going to be getting more parents in the building. It is going to be more community events, and it's going to be giving the students wanting to take pride in their own building, their own community. Because I think right now the kids don't take pride in their own school, and I think that's why we're seeing the type of behavior we're seeing. And I think as a community, we have to work on that. So
Yeah,
I just want to echo what you guys were
Definitely
saying.
agree with you there.
I agree. I think there are a lot of creative solutions that we could consider. I would personally like to see middle school kids get to spend some part of the day outdoors. I mean, I think that's a really hard transition going from 5th grade when you have recess, and then it's just a very different environment in middle school. I know my kids were devastated when they found out there was no recess at middle school, but we will continue the discussion going forward.
Well, to the point of belonging, our strategic plan, there are more than 20 outcomes and strategies in that plan that speak directly or indirectly to student belonging and student voice. And I think those are some of the proactive things. The fact of the matter is that some of those types of things will take more time.
Right.
If you're talking about a culture and a climate change, there are things that we can do tomorrow, and there are things that
Take 5 years.
we're going to be looking at this time next year to see were they effective or not. And so I think there's a really good mix, and Dr. Bolton talked about this last night. Yeah, you want kids to belong, but you also want more adults in the hallway. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So I think we need both of these, and I think we have a really good plan. Some of these, the idea, or even some of my recommendations in terms of, for example, an additional school resource officer, these are things that the board and administration have been talking about for months now and just kind of finalizing. So we certainly knew, and looking at our strategic plan, we know that we're missing something and that there's work to do. And I'm really grateful that we're starting it. It sounds like we should have started a long time ago, but best we could start is tonight, right? So, yeah.
Can I just say that we speak of culture and climate and we talk about belonging and pride, but I really would hope that we can start to restore with the students who are being impacted. I mean, we're spending a lot of energy on people that are showing they don't want to be here, or they don't want to do the work. As a board and as a district and administration, we need to figure out how to repair and rebuild trust with these students, because nothing's going to change. As someone who's dealt with bullying personally, I wish that adult would have told me, I can help you, or listened to me or heard me. I think we have to build trust back with them. So this is all great, but I think we're missing that piece of the people that are being impacted the most. Parents are here, and that's great, but who's having these conversations with the kids? The parents are left to do it.
Thank you. Okay, is there any further discussion? Are we ready to vote on the handbook? We had a motion and a second, right, Laura?
Yes.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Brianna,
Yes.
Amy,
No.
Anna,
Yes.
Corey,
No.
Gary,
No.
Carla,
Aye.
Renee. No. Motion fails 4-3.
So what is the direction then for bringing the handbook back? What changes would you like to see?
I think I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think we need to figure out some creative ways to discipline and be more proactive before we actually put it into print. I don't know how we're going to do it this quickly, but I think we got to do something to put in print that really mirrors what we as a board would like to see. And instead of just putting any old thing together just because we need something quickly, I want us to just do it right. Take the time and really think about it.
So-
Especially when it's available online. Like, printing is nice, but we can produce it online.
That was my question, is there a way for us, there's nothing to say that we couldn't make changes to the handbook during the year, right? Or after it's printed?
Parents need and students sign off during registration that they've read and understood the handbook. And so, for example, when there is an issue, it doesn't even have to be a discipline issue, but to say, well, I didn't know that, no one ever told me about how to pay for lunches or whatever, and then you say, well, if it's in the handbook and you sign that you've read that. So right now, there's a draft version of, last year's handbook, because at the discipline aside, very little has, and the dress code, very little has changed. But I don't really understand the direction in terms of these matrices, the parts you didn't like. I mean, the proactive pieces we talked about are not in the matrices. Do you want us to go back and
Well, I just looked up the definition of discipline. The practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior. So I think it might be good to put in some of the more things that the school would do in restoration, in getting the kids to accept what they've done, so that it is clear to teachers, students, parents, you are expected to serve this suspension and also maybe meet with a social worker as part of the reentry plan. I mean, because I don't feel that we've really told Dr. Maychek what we want changed.
Well,
Just that there
we
need
don't
to be
know yet.
changes.
Yeah, but I think we don't know yet, right? Because we're still trying to figure out what we should be doing to make it better. So I think we don't know yet. What we do know is we need some more time. That's what we do.
Well, I'm just curious if what we need to figure out is more of the proactive things, which wouldn't be reflected in the matrix anyway.
But wouldn't it though? Like, wouldn't we add stuff? Like, right now we write restorative practices. Like, should we be more detailed that the parents and students are aware of what that practice might look like? And again, not today.
Yeah.
We will not figure that out today. But
It's like one of the things that Gary said, I think, might be a good
Mhm.
thing. Like,
Mhm.
I just don't want to rush it because it seems like the problem is just way too big. I think we should put some thought.
Yeah, I think we have to realize too, as a board, we put policies into place, right? The administration, under the leadership of the superintendent, does the day-to-day. The handbook is put together by a team of educators, social workers that have the expertise to do this. Now we're going to sit here at the board table and try to decide what goes in the student handbook. I think that would take a little bit of research on our part, and we're getting into the work of the superintendent.
I agree.
So that concerns me right there. The matrix is, the matrices are very well laid out. I think we all agree that there is a discipline issue. It's a culture issue that needs to be fixed. You're not going to be able to fix that in black and white. I think if you read through this handbook, you would see that it's the language is very plain, easy to follow. We just have to follow it, right? If a student is swearing, there's a disciplinary action for that, and it's up to, at the discretion of the teacher, the administrators, to do that. But it's laid out in here. So I think we have to be really careful about now going back and rewriting the student handbook.
I don't think we should rewrite it, but I do think that it needs more clarity as far as, I personally do not think that it should be a judgment call for some things maybe should be discretionary, but I think we need to flesh out what should be discretionary, because we know everybody has their own set of biases. So what might be okay for me might not be okay for Brianna. So I think just to tighten it up, and I don't think we should rush to do that. I mean, because yes, it is the superintendent's work, but I think we as a board can give some direction on what it is we expect. And we're all clear on it, as opposed to, oh, it says 1, 2, maybe 3, maybe we should do a range, maybe we should, just for clarity. It's always good to have clarity, I think, but that's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, suggesting that a student gets sent home for fighting, that was pretty clear. I mean, I'm disappointed because it's clearly your administrative team thought the changes that we were making were for the better. But again, so to come back next month, we'll remove the suggestions that we had for this, other than the sounds like, at least for these matrices, to remove changes to the suspension piece, but to leave the changes to the dress code piece. Again, I don't, in terms of voting no, I guess I'm not sure still what the sticking point, which one of these changes was the sticking point.
For me, I just need some time.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know about everybody else. I need some time.
So is that a hurdle as far as getting it printed in time for back to school?
Yes.
I wonder if,
But like I said, I mean, we want to get it right, so it's worth the wait.
okay. So how do we want to, do we need to set another meeting to talk about changes, or how should we proceed? Because like you say, I don't think we do have clear direction right now.
Are you asking the board members, or?
Corey?
So as a board, we're going to have to, however we share the information with Bob and the team, but basically have to give some direction. And again, not as much of the nitty-gritty, the line by line, like you were saying earlier, but more of like what we'd like to see overall. And then again, I think we're looking at a few of the matrices as the ones that are biggest concern. From my end, I'll add more to it in communication later on, but just a little more detail about the restorative practice, a little bit more about that, a little more detail about that information. And I mean, right now, that's all I can give right now. But again, I think what Renee said, a little more time to look at it, get some idea, add to the direction, and then have your team to come together just to expand on those. That's my thoughts.
I will say that this is the second time we've seen this, so I'm not sure what more time is needed to look at.
But we're hearing more and more from the community, and we're hearing more and more that this is the same handbook we've been using over and over again, and it's not doing anything. And I think us agreeing to it without listening and making changes is, I don't know.
But we're not giving Bob any direction.
So we don't have direction right this second. I agree with that. But that is on us as board members to think about our direction and share direction. We don't agree with it right now, but we'll come to.
Are we going to meet, or are we going to individually, via email, send direction, and can we set a timeline on this so that we're not
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
doing this again in 30 days?
I mean, I don't know how OMA applies, because, like, are we all just going to communicate individually to you, and you'll...
Well, that's what I was thinking, is that we really don't have a way to collaborate outside of
We certainly
meetings.
call a committee of the whole meeting
Okay.
to talk about the handbook.
All right.
I would just like to, it seems like there needs a little more space and time, and I agree with Corey that we need to respond properly to the community, and it's more impactful when it's in the handbook than saying we're going to come back to it later. Let's do this now. So let's make some time to hash out whatever needs hashing out, and I'm fine scheduling another meeting to make it happen to help meet the deadline.
Other board members, are you guys on board with that? Do we want to schedule it now?
I heard Laura's.
Laura's. That's right. Well, so we'll get our phones out and look at our calendars. Could we do next week?
Administration has graduation 2 nights
Yeah.
next week. So.
That's the first thing. Okay. Do we want to look the following week?
First week of June, yeah.
Yeah. Anybody, any days that week that will work?
Thursday.
The 8th?
Yes.
Can anybody?
That works for for me.
Okay. That works for me as well. I'm sorry?
At 6 PM. Well, but, I mean, that was on the books from before.
That's previous policy committee, yeah. At 6, could we?
No, not 6.
The 7th.
7?
Yeah, 7.
Brianna? Okay.
At 7 on the 8th.
Yes. Is that good, Corey?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, we'll do a committee of the whole meeting at that time. Let's keep moving. All right, we will move on to action item C, which is approval of additional district-wide school resource officer for 2023-24.
I move to approve an additional district school resource officer for the 2023-24 school year as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? I had a quick question that I thought of earlier when we were talking about this. Is the idea that the new SRO will be at middle full-time?
Well, if we had a second SRO, I'm not sure if it would be the additional person, or certainly Officer Hanson has built relationships with middle school staff and admin. But the idea would be that, yes, so one person would be at middle school serving 1,700 students, while the other person, with some of the challenges that we've all been talking about tonight, Detective Hanson's, it's been a challenge for her to be able to get into the pre-K through 5 classrooms, which is also part of her role as, community officer, and she's, doing presentations on stranger danger and internet and meeting kids and talking about the role of the police officer in the community, and it's been hard to be able to do that, and vice versa, than being out in the district, and then something happens at middle or one of the other schools, and then it's tough to respond because maybe you're not there. So, but the idea would be to have one person mainly at middle and one person mainly rotating, having a schedule where they would, work in the 3 elementary schools.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Amy?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Carla?
Aye.
Renee? Yes. Brianna?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Point of order. This next action item actually lists a name. I don't think we should list names in the action. Did you guys check with the attorneys on
We
this?
did.
And they said list the name because we've never done that before.
Yes, we have. There was
Not in
one.
open session, we have not.
Yes,
They
we have.
usually assign them a number, and the
So-
number's at the top.
The question with the attorney was to use the employee number that we used in closed session
Mhm.
to identify this item, and the attorney directed us to use the name.
Is that right, Laura? That was my...
That's my understanding, but I did not talk to the attorney. That's just what I was told.
Was this,
Yeah. Is Martha, is she here? Oh,
Yeah.
there.
was
Sorry.
this discussed and closed when you guys left me on hold all that time?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, it was one of the first items on the closed agenda. I think you were.
It wasn't.
So, Bill Beeson did recommend that we put the person's name on there. So that's why it's on.
Yeah, because we've never done that before.
Yes, we have.
Really?
Yeah.
When?
The last time we dismissed someone, which was the one and only other dismissal that I remember.
The first meeting after we came onto the board, I think.
I'd like to see, well, if the attorney said it, and normally it would have
Yeah.
gone as a consent agenda item versus
I
a
asked specifically how
action.
should that action item be, and I had originally the numbers on there, he said, no, you have to list the employee's name.
Okay.
Thank you. That's the advice of the attorney. All right, so item D, approval of recommendation to dismiss an educational support personnel. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve to terminate the employment of Shierica McLean for the reasons discussed in closed session, effective immediately.
Second.
Any discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Anna?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Carla?
I'm abstaining on the grounds that I think this may be inappropriate to list an employee's name. I don't know if this is going to bring some type of liability to the district, so I'm abstaining.
Renee? Yes. Brianna?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0 with one abstention.
Thank you. Item E is the approval of surety bond of treasurer. Can I get a motion to approve the resolution approving the surety bond of the treasurer naming Liberty Mutual authorized agent?
So moved.
I second.
Any discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Corey?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Carla?
Aye.
Renee? Yes. Brianna?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Anna? Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item F is the approval of Director of Technology and Innovation. Can I get a motion to approve the employment of Cheryl Steisen as Director of Technology and Innovation effective July 1st, 2023?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Gary?
Yes.
Carla?
Aye.
Renee? Yes. Brianna?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
And Dr. Machek will introduce
So,
Sherry.
yeah. So I did let Sherry know that once if she was approved, that she would be invited to say a few words, but I would like to just say a few words on her behalf. Sherry comes to us from Sunset Ridge School District in Northfield, and she has been there in total 22 years with some held various roles. Sherry was a Spanish teacher. It's interesting because all the tech-related positions that we said we needed to try to get us to the next step, like a curriculum integration person, and then somebody who could do student management, that system. We even talked yesterday about supporting Brooke's work with Apogee and our new website and mobile app. Sherry's references were impeccable. I spoke with her superintendent. They wanted Sherry to stay very badly and offered her a different position outside of the technology world to stay as they were restructuring some things. And I'm just very grateful that Sherry is joining us. She has through the interview process, she has the right, certainly understands that our technology is for teachers and students, and that if our teachers and students can't access or utilize technology and utilize it quickly and effectively, then our technology program isn't working, and that's pretty much where she had me. So I want to introduce Sherry Steisen, and I am thrilled that she's joining us.
Thank you so much. So
It's not very loud.
Okay. I just wanted to thank the board and thank the interview committee for this opportunity. I am very excited to join Woodland District 50. With my teaching experience and my experience as a tech integration specialist and the last 7 years being a technology director, I feel like I can bring a lot to the district, and I'm just really excited. So I just wanted to thank everybody for the opportunity.
Welcome. All right, we'll move on to reports and discussion items. So we have a written report and presentation on the updated grades K to 5 report cards with Dr. Kiefer and Dr. Thomas.
And Mrs. Elizabeth Sanchez-Lopez.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Is this on? Is it working all right? I think so.
All right, well, good evening. We have a really exciting thing actually to talk about today. This is a kind of a big chapter change, really for Woodland. This is one of those things that will go down historically as a change that we've made, and I think we all, at least the three of us presenting, certainly believe this is in their best interest of our students. So I'm just going to start with reminders. Introductions. I'm Dr. Steve Thomas. I'm the Associate Superintendent of Teaching and Learning with Equity. I have with me Dr. Victoria Kiefer, who's the Director of Teaching and Learning. I also have with me Mrs. Elizabeth Sanchez-Apezi, who's the Director of Language Acquisition. And today we're going to talk about really those changes that we'll be making to our equitable grading and report cards. I just want to remind the board, not yet, I just want to remind the board of a few things. First of all, the report that you have is going to be more detailed than what I'll present today. We're going to try to keep on moving through fairly quickly. So if there's any questions that you see in there, anything that's unclear, please do follow up with us. Just give us a quick call or certainly an email, and we'll get back to you with as much detail as we certainly can. So also around the room, you'll notice we have some samples here. It may be a little harder if you're in the audience, but over here on the left-hand side, we do have some examples of what specific standards will be going on the report cards, and they're listed basically by grade level as well as by content area. Over on the right, we have a few things here that we'll talk about as well as we kind of go through. But if there's 4 takeaways, I think, that I would stress that we want you to listen to, the one piece is that we're creating a system that is going to be more consistent. That is one of the big things that we're creating. And K5 specifically we'll talk a lot about today, a consistent system. We're also creating one that's going to give more detail about where students are and how they are in their learning process. It's also going to be one where we focus on mastery. Rather than just focusing on specifically points collection or anything like that, we're going to focus on students mastering certain standards. And the last one is we're pulling out behaviors, student effort, pulling in timeliness. We're pulling those out of the academic ratings we're going to give students, and we're putting those in their own little area. So just a reminder, Dr. Kiefer and I presented back in January. We went through just kind of some of the why for you as to why this is an important piece, all the research that we looked at, all the support we had from 30 members that are part of the committee themselves. And then also with that, you can kind of see those 4 pieces that I outlined that are up there. Just a reminder, though, you're going to see a lot about how we've had a lot of different input from teachers as well. So this is not just a system that we created in some little room with this small committee. We've had pretty extensive conversations with staff all around. We'll pass it over to Dr. Kiefer.
So before we start looking at revising report cards, we really have to go back to basics and look at our grading practices using research and best practices. So starting next school year, kindergarten through 5th grade, we'll begin these research-based grading practices along with a new report card starting in August. And then we did present one portion of grading principles, retakes and redos, to middle school. We do have a lot more PD to do in September, so we would like to have 6th through 8th grade teachers start in 3rd quarter, just the retakes and redos only. Between September and January, we're going to do a lot of PD for those staff members to make sure they're ready with their new schedule, practice, see what works, what doesn't work, and get them ready. Okay, so as you know, we have an attorney in our room today, so she had to take a bar exam to show mastery for contents. We have a physical therapist, we have pilots, we have accountants, and teachers, of course, have to show mastery on their assessment too. And as Steve says, our goal is to make sure that students show mastery related to the standards. So what we have right now going on with our grading system, we have a lot of kids kind of walking away. They don't have a chance to show mastery. They don't really have a chance to retake or redo. So we want to make sure that we bring them up to make sure they have mastery of those standards. And we want to help them by giving them multiple opportunities for this. So we all know that students don't learn at the same rates, same with adults as well too. So I'm going to direct your attention to the academic learning plan over here. So what happens is, I'll give you an example. At the end of a science unit, a student takes a summative end of unit assessment, and let's say they don't do so well. They get a 2, which is approaching. They don't have mastery of those standards. So the teacher has to go back and see where on the assessment they didn't show mastery. Maybe it's 1 or 2 standards. And then between the teacher and the student, they have to develop an academic learning plan to go back and see what they don't know, how they're going to fix it, and then retake a portion and or all of the assessment. Most likely it will be just a small portion, just those standards that they did not master. And then once the academic learning plan is completed, they're allowed to take that redo and retake on the assessment does take place. Now, if the academic learning plan is not completed and the student does not do the extra work to learn the material, the retake and redo does not take place because the whole goal is learning and mastery. So when we talk about retakes and redos, we don't average the two scores of the retake assessment and the average assessment because we can't really average learning. It doesn't really make sense. We take the higher of the two. And this is, of course, is consistent along with adult exams like the bar exam and pilot's licenses as well too. So what we'd like to do is have one full-time FTE in the middle school next year to supervise those retakes and redos, which takes the pressure off our classroom teachers from doing that and allows them and gives them the time to really focus on teaching those standards to make sure those kids can show the mastery of it. And in addition to that, during the school day, we'll have some time for adults to supervise before and after school as well too, to give them lots of opportunity to be successful. And I'll turn over to Elizabeth Sanchez-Abesi.
Thank you. So part of our equitable grading changes was a committee around language acquisition. As you know, a large percentage of our students are learning English as an additional language, and or they could also be learning Spanish as an additional language. And currently, right now, we do not have a formal or systematic way to be able to communicate with families on how their student is doing in their progression of learning additional language. Which is really important because then parents are walking away with not a clear understanding or feedback on that. And we really want them to have that partnership with us to assist their child in learning that additional language. So the purpose of the committee that I worked with was to develop a tool that was asset-based language. And so really that's just a fancy terminology for a positive way to value a student learning another language. So instead of saying errors, we may say accuracy. That would be one example of it. And we wanted them to look at not only their English language acquisition, but also their Spanish language acquisition if they're in dual language. If they happen to be not in dual language, we wanted to be able to report out on their English language acquisition. Our goal when we met is we wanted something to be based on language acquisition theory and best practices. We want it to be positive. We wanted it to be applicable to all grade levels, flexible to any language or content areas, and to be clear for parents and educators. We looked at a wide variety of resources. There's a bunch of them listed up there. We also dug deep into other states that are typically known for having a lot of publications in other languages or more familiarity around this, such as California and Texas. We also looked at local report cards to see their language acquisition, and there are some around our area that have areas of language acquisition on the report card. In the end, we were able to develop a tool that we believe will help parents see and understand their child's biliteracy, Spanish and language acquisition in the dual language program, and for our students that are learning English as an additional language. And this would be communicated directly with our families in November conferences. Our dual language teachers and English language teachers really felt it was important to have conversations around this, and so the tool right over by Corey, that's our rubric that we developed, that colorful one right there, thank you. This will be completed by our teachers collaboratively, and then a conversation and partnership around that will be shared every November. So what report card changes will occur for the 2023-2024 school year? The first is we're going to have a shift from skills to standards. So in kindergarten through 5th grade, there's going to be that shift when you look at your report card from a skill-based report card to standards that have been adopted by the Illinois State Board of Education. And currently, we don't have those specifically identified on our reporting system. In 4th and 5th grade, our students are only receiving letter grades, and that defines their performance overall as a term. And that letter grade is going to go away. Instead, we're going to have a standards-based rating for them. We looked at a lot of survey data from our parents that communicated with us on what did they need more from our report card or current reporting system. And a lot of them was just needing more specific information around their child's progress. And a standards-based report card is going to be more specific and be able to provide parents with a much better idea of what their student is learning and able to do. It'll also provide a lot more consistency in our content areas. Did you switch it? Okay. So how did we identify the standards that you're going to see on the report card? What we did is we had groups of teachers, specialists, and educators from across the district come together to really hone in on what those key standards and habits are that we're going to communicate out. Once we did that, we had gallery walks. So it was called the Steve and Vicki Show. They went to every building and they had visual and digital displays of what we were looking to report out on. And then we had teachers complete feedback forms, and we also had a lot of individual conversations and gathered that qualitative data on what they thought about the standards that we thought were the most important. When we were deciding on standards, we wanted to make sure that those standards were enduring, that they addressed prerequisite skills, and that they were also priority standards identified by the Illinois State Board of Education. We did several gallery walks, so we went through several revision processes. We're on draft 5 right now, and that is the one on display over here. And this is what we anticipate for our parents to see. There may be some minor adjustments on if we find like maybe a misspelling or spacing or something that maybe really just isn't making sense for communication.
So one of the things that we really were kind of concerned with is I think many of the staff members that are still here, they also have students that are in different districts. And there are many districts around us that had started a standards-based report card. And one example I think that resonated with a lot of people was that there was a district nearby that had an 8-page standards-based report card. So unlike you, unfortunately, that do get drowned in a lot of material to read for every single board meeting, we did not want that to happen to our parents. We did not want a report card that was 8 pages long. So we needed to find some blend between a letter grade and an 8-page report card. And so we kind of developed this sort of a system, and this is just kind of a quick way. It's not at all drawn to scale, but it's mostly accurate in the way that we identified this. That biggest, darkest green circle is really all the different standards that are assigned to us by the ISBE. Also included in that are expectations we have as part of Woodland staff and Woodland students. It's also the mandates that are ascribed to us by the state, the Illinois General Assembly. So those are all part of the things that we have to teach. Then that next circle is secondary standards. These are important standards, but they're not ones that we spend as much time and effort and energy on. The third circle then is the priority standards. Those are the ones we're going to spend our time and energy on, and they're going to get the bulk of all of our attention. From that, then, we have a set that we use for our common assessments. Those are internal assessments that we use to really just kind of see how students are progressing, how is our curriculum working to address the needs of those standards. And then lastly, you'll see that smallest, the whitest of the circles is really then the standards that we selected that are going to be on the report card. So what you see over here on the left is a really tiny snapshot of those in your board report. You can click on an active link and you can go to the actual sheet stock that will have all of them listed. One question you may have, and I'll just preempt it, is that, so you may see over there, you may see like 4th grade, for example, math. Well, what if my student's in 4th grade advanced math? They won't have those standards. They'll have 4th grade advanced math standards, so which is most likely a combination of 5th grade or even 6th grade standards. So it really depends upon the course that your child's enrolled in as to what standards that actually appear on the report card. They may have different numbers each term as we get to in a minute. And you'll see those, there's a little number on the top next to where it says trimesters there. That'll show you actually how many standards we're going to be reporting out on each of those different terms. And again, it's a little bit more active in detail in your document. So one of the other things I talked about before is removing student attributes and behaviors. And I will say, if there's one thing that was really positively supported, not only by the focus group we did with parents, but as well by staff, is removing out those behaviors into a separate piece, and we're going to call those learning habits. And there are 16 of them, and they're over here. You can see where it says Woodland Learning Habits, this little doc right there. We align them to the ROAR, R-O-A-R, so there's 4 for each. They are really what our expectations are for students as learners. And if you look at those, you probably would say, you know, those are probably good expectations everywhere from early childhood all the way up through graduate school. There's no stopping. It's really about how do you interact with school and learning. But we wanted to remove those really from the academic scores that we're going to give as far as the standards. We don't want whether you handed something in on time or not to impact your knowledge of the standard. You'll get a rating for that. If it's late or you're consistently giving in things late, that will go on a learning habit because that's where that is. That's a behavior. That's not necessarily associated with your knowledge of the content. So here we also have the performance levels, and those are on the far right over here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Exemplary being 4, 3 being meeting, 2 being approaching, and 1 being beginning. And meeting for us is really important. You'll notice it's highlighted there, it's highlighted over there, because that is what we're setting as our expectation for students. It's not exemplary. We're setting it as a 3. So we want students to get to mastery. So when we use the word term mastery, we're meaning meeting. That's what we're expecting students to get to on each of their standards. Well, how is a 4-point system different than a 100-point system? And there's a few things. You know, we all grew up, I would say probably everyone in this room had some version of that for a good number of years in our lifetime. You know, there's a few things with that. First of all, it's very easy to determine, or really through a rubric, explain the difference between a 2 as far as a score and a 3. I would challenge anyone to explain to me what the difference is if they took an assessment between a 69 on a standard and a 70 on a standard. But for some reason, we've used this 100-point scale for a long time. And in fact, one of the theorists or researchers that we listen to quite a bit said we have, if you think about it, we have 60 different ways to describe failure. It's kind of evil when you think about it that way, but we do. We have 0 to 60 as being a failing grade, and we have 40% that are basically passing. And it is really kind of wrong. We spend a lot of time and our effort for some reason having this system where we have 40% of that. We want to move away from that to where we're helping kids understand where they need to go in order to show mastery. Lastly, there's a couple more. Report card changes. So we're eliminating the letter grade for K through 5. And that's really important to eliminate that. You're going to get far more detail as a parent through those standards. We don't really want one summary score as some way to describe that. If we all were in the same class, we all got a letter grade, and there was 10 different standards we were assessed on, I would guarantee you, even if we got the same grade, we would all have different levels within those 10 standards that made up that grade. So we want to give the specifics of the standards, and that's where we'll focus our effort on. And once again, going back to that, I need you to break away from that old traditional system of assuming an A is what we want students to do. Push that aside for a minute. A 4 is not an A. That's not what we're trying to attain. We expect a lot of 3s. That should be where you're expecting or hoping your students are getting to as far as content. You want to see a lot of 3s, probably see some 2s and 3s, but do not expect that everything's a 4. And if it's not, you need to do something because there's something wrong. No, 3s are where we would want students to be. I will caveat, though, we are going to leave a letter grade in the middle school. We'll talk about that a little bit more in detail when we get to a middle school conversation. But for K through 5, there's no letter grades. And lastly, trimesters, and we've hinted this before, and I think we talked about it in January. There's one really big reason why we have that, and that's going to be that first part about meeting and mastery. We want to give them enough time to really demonstrate that they can do it either through retakes and redos or whatever the case is. It also allows, a longer term, allows us to really focus far more on feedback and not so much on grading. For example, if I was going to do a salsa dancing class tonight, I guess 11 o'clock class maybe, if I got a grade, if the first class I go to and I get a grade on that, there's a good chance I'm not coming back, okay? If I got feedback on how to get better, then maybe I'll come back the next time, okay? So that's really what it comes down to. If I'm getting feedback, I'm far more willing to engage, and we want to keep students engaged. We had a lot of conversations today about engagement of students. We hope that our system is really going to help kids stay engaged more. And lastly, really, it is a logistics piece about so many more standards and habits we're collecting data on. It's nicer to have a longer term. So we moved to trimesters.
Thank you. So one of the questions we had back in January from one of our board members was, we're doing all this work. We've been working on this for 4 years. How is this information going to get out to parents and caretakers? So we do have a plan. Here we are. It's a multidimensional approach, really. So this is a very complex change happening. So we're asking everybody to kind of detach from the past and kind of move forward onto something new and different. So we're going to have district and school email blasts and text messages and newsletters, and we'll find every way we can possibly communicate out to families. We're going to create a 2-page information sheet. We do have a handbook. It is very, very detailed. You have a copy of it. It's about 30 pages long. It will be translated into Spanish, but who has time to read a 30-page handbook. So we're going to do a 2-page information summary, everything you need to know from a parent point of view. And then Steve is going to do short 2 or 3 minute videos every other week starting in August, really pushing on this information out to parents as best as possible. So we're also adding in another web page to our website with articles and links and videos and report card samples and everything you need to know about all this change. So that will be made available August 1st. And then we are going to work on developing a common set of slides that teachers can use for a sneak peek in curriculum night, so they're all sharing the exact same information at the exact same time. Well, not the exact same time, but there's curriculum nights. And then we are going to be made ourselves available on curriculum nights and sneak peeks, so we're going to be hanging out in the room. Anybody has any questions, we can do a little presentation, make sure parents know exactly what's going on. And then we're going to make videos and push out information, little short bite-sized pieces throughout all of next year as well, too. Okay, so any questions that we can clarify for you?
I have many.
All right.
Some of them are just yes or no, so I'll start with those. You've already answered that one. In the packet, kindergarten is going to stay at semesters?
Yes. So kindergarten will be semesters. Next year, 1 through 5 trimesters, middle school quarters. But the 24-25 school year, it's kindergarten semesters 1 through 8 trimesters.
So just to add in, yeah, we had a lot of conversation regarding keeping kindergarten at semesters, and one of the big things about that was that as kids come in with a lot of non-school experience, it's better to give them a little bit more time to help kids get accumulated or adjusted to really school experience, and as well, then that longer term helps with that. You know, what I forgot to mention, and that goes along with this, is that the learning habits will be the first thing we send home the mid-trimester. So the very first trimester, midterm, everyone will be sending home the learning habits as far as like a report card to all families. In combination with that, for kindergarten, what we'll be sending home is we'll be sending that same piece home as well as the kids assessment, which is a state mandated assessment that we use. It's kind of an observational survey of students. So parents will get those pieces of information first thing about halfway through the year, roughly, or halfway through the first semester. So they'll get some information. It just won't be formally the report cards on trimesters.
Should I just go through my list, or should we round robin? Or? Okay. So you mentioned hiring a 1.0 FTE. For when would that start? With,
Yeah.
you know, you're doing a lot of PD for teachers, so when would that success center person begin?
Yeah,
would they be an employee to get some of the training?
Yeah, so what that process, so much like a testing center in a high school,
Yep.
kind of there's minimal training associated with that,
Okay.
but we do want to find out, we do want to look at, maybe Corey's got some suggestions, or Sherry says that we really want to find out some kind of really digital interface that will allow teachers remotely to send out either assessments or tasks to this person to administer them, as well as we'd have that, as Dr. Kiefer mentioned, before school and after school. So that way, kids have other things going on. If they can get dropped off early or stay late, they can also take these retakes or redos. So we're trying to make it as convenient. But again, the important thing is really have it so that this person is not really dealing with the other pieces of really our teachers. What they're doing is, you know, helping students understand the material, reteaching material, differentiating material so kids can have success. This is really a person just kind of supervising that process.
So a proctor.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best word, yes.
Okay. Is there reasoning for, and I'm assuming it's time, that the language acquisition would only be done in November rather than maybe twice a year?
Yeah, we had many conversations about that as well. We do send access scores home at the end of the year. And in addition, language acquisition theory, in our handbook, we will have the stages. It typically takes anywhere from 7 to 12 years to acquire a language proficiently. So in the very beginning, students are going to look like they're progressing very fast, but once they get to a certain level, there typically is a large amount of language that becomes very much more complex, which takes much more time. So students may be in an area for a couple years because it's taken within the context of that grade level and the content that they're learning. So we will do it every year. Now, the good thing about this is that it isn't formally within like our Skyward report card system. So we have the flexibility to be able to evaluate this after a year and see, is this something that we want to implement more often? Is it given at the right time? Is that November's the good place? So we have some flexibility in looking at, should we do this more often or not?
Okay. And did I read correctly in the packet that it's not only teachers that can initiate the academic learning plan, but students and parents can as well?
Yeah, that's correct. So we're gonna be asking teachers anytime a student who is on a summary assessment gets a 2 to help initiate that process. But it could be a situation, right, where a student is initiating the process for a particular item or a parent requesting that. Now, we do want to put some caveats in there. As I mentioned before, 3 is going to be our expectation for mastery. So we're not going to have situations where we suggesting parents say, hey, my child got a 3, I want them to get a 4. That's not what we're going to be working towards. But getting from a 2 to a 3 should be a fairly automatic process, one we're ideally working our system well.
Okay. That's it? Those are my questions. Thank
Come on, you got more, right?
I have a question for Ms. Sapezi. Will this grading matrix help the Spanish teachers? Will it help expedite like how they communicate with parents about the language acquisition? Like, will it help them feel more confident relaying that in parent-teacher conferences?
I hope so. We did have dual language teachers on there, and I also meet with dual language parents regularly. And so I'd like to hear from both sides how this works our first time. But they really felt like right now they don't have anything to really be able to give a context for, is a student mastering a standard or maybe not mastering a standard because they don't yet have the language. And we believe that this tool will help provide some context for perhaps maybe the standard isn't being mastered because of the language. Also, when we worked on these standards-based report cards, any standard that is the same, that's typically your literature and informational, math standards are the same, we paired them. So we're looking at it not only in the English setting, but we're also looking at it in the Spanish setting. So that's also going to help us be able to communicate with families that, you know what, this student is able to do this in the English classroom, not in the Spanish. And if we're looking at our language acquisition rubric, it's most likely within the context of learning the language and not something that is maybe not progressing academically the way we would want.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, again, amazing. You guys are putting so much time and effort into it, and I can see it. Logistic-wise and stuff with the standards and that, like, are the teachers right now working on tagging standards on each assignment? Is that like kind of work that's happening right now? Yeah.
So we have a couple things going on. We have reading and math specialists who have worked with classroom teachers to identify rubrics. So if you have a standard, we have to identify what exactly does a meet mean, what is a approaching meaning. So those are basically pretty much all done by now.
Nice.
And then now they're working on identifying evidence of learning and tagging everything to make sure that everything's aligned with the standards.
Got it.
Yeah. And that will continue throughout the summer.
Yeah,
Yeah. And this will all be Skyward friendly, SIS friendly, or like is that still our plan? Or are we thinking about Google Sheets, make your own?
It's a complicated response.
Yeah. So I think I was questioned by a couple of specialists the other day. Like ideally, we're going to have all staff start putting in the information within the grade book of Skyward.
Okay.
But I'm willing to, at this point, because we can't necessarily start building the report cards until course schedules are in and student schedules are in and courses are all in.
Okay.
Once that's in and we can start future scheduling, which is like in June, we can start to put together what the report card will look like.
Okay.
And I want to wait until we get to that point before I say staff have to do that. So right now, a lot of staff members keep like sheets, Google Sheets, other things as their own grade book internally. But our goal is to have transparency. Our goal is to have that available through family access to parents. So it's not a surprise. Now, going back to what I said, though, earlier about feedback earlier in the term, expect that there might be time to time where it's just going to say in process or there's not specifically grades coming at the regularity that you may be used to. And that's something we'll have to work through with parents.
Yeah, that was my kind of question, like, what would that look like? And then my last question is, again, feedback evaluation, like, how do you guys, like, we're rolling this out, it's not gonna be perfect day one, but like, I like that you said this is version 5 already, like, how are you guys gonna collect feedback from teams, teachers, and make changes, or?
Yeah, so, I mean, right now, we've been spending a lot of time. We meet with staff pretty much every month.
Okay.
We have several presentations, like, for instance, we'll spend the entire day at elementary. Vicki and I will split different teams. So we're meeting with staff in smaller team environments. As we talked about with the gallery walks, we'll sit there, we basically answer questions and get feedback through a feedback tool. And I assume we'll keep that similar process.
I guess that's
because,
what, not as much on the drafts, but yeah, like, once it's actually in play and we realize, we have to change A, B, C, or kind of things.
For sure. I mean, we do. I mean, we ask, and one of the words I like to use a lot is nimble. Like, we ask them to have nimble assessments. Well, we also are going to have to be nimble in the way that we respond to issues and concerns that come up. So, yes, for sure. But we need to build a really solid base because not everyone understands this shift. It's a big shift. And so we want to make sure that base was there, and then we'll have to make adjustments once we start getting things rolling.
Really exciting. You guys, I mean, above and beyond, I appreciate all the time and effort you put into it.
We're going to get matching T-shirts.
Yes.
I have one little thing, one more thing.
I'm looking forward to the videos, by the way. Those videos you're gonna be in the video the whole time.
Yeah. I know, you're going to screencast in that, yeah.
Little bottom right, little.
I know, right. Yeah, but Vicki likes to volunteer me for a lot of things. But just one little thing I forgot to mention that actually it's like another great thing today. It's actually Vicki's birthday today. So congratulations and happy birthday.
Should we sing?
I want to make sure we get, a special day all around.
We should action item.
Thank you. I just want to say, the more I read about this, the more I love it. I really love the separating behavior from content mastery because I think that we're sending a message to kids that if either developmentally you don't have these skills yet, that it's somehow linked to what you've learned and your worth and value in some way. And I love being able to separate those out. I think that's huge for equity. For kids with disabilities who may, just not have some of those skills yet. And I particularly love the taking the most recent, attempt at a assessment and using that grade because you're right, we don't do that anywhere else in life. And the averaging the two grades together never made sense to me. But this plan overall really addresses, because I have kids in 9th grade, it really addresses to me like all of the things that I wonder, why do we grade this way? Why do we do this? I really like it, so thank you guys.
Yep. I have to say again, because I've said it before at your last presentation, but I absolutely love this because it is shifting the focus, like you've said, from points collection and playing the game to learning and making sure that the kids are learning, whether it's learning about their academics and where they stand, or their behaviors, and I adore it.
Thanks, guys. Okay, reports and discussion. Item B is written report and presentation on District 50 intervention program. We'll have Director of Educational Supports and Innovations, Risa Cohen.
Thank you. How to do this with 2 hands. It's a hard act to follow the Steve and Vicki show.
Are you doing videos? Are you going to be making videos?
Not tonight, but I can work that in for the next one if we need to. So I'm excited to present on some of the programs that we have. I take care of all the multi-tiered systems of support in the district, which is really exciting, working in conjunction with special education and teaching and learning. This is my year 2, so this has been a really busy, fun year. We continued the winter break instructional support program, spring break, and then this year I got to launch Wildcat Saturday Study Hall, high-impact tutoring, and Kids Hope, which is a social emotional, trying to get in both sides of our systems this year. So winter break and spring break, this is our 3rd year running these 2 programs, and they provide additional instructional support in reading and math. Students are identified if they're already in Tier 3, so we look at our assessments, teachers give recommendations. We had 100, this year I think 134 students recommended for this particular intervention, and invitations were sent out. We keep our tutor-to-student ratio at 5-to-1. It was actually probably a little bit less this year. And then our Wildcat Saturday, which was really fun to launch. This is our plan C or D for reaching students on Saturdays. Our first brainstorm with Dr. Machek was, how do we get into the community? Like, I wanted a bus. We wanted Woodland on wheels, trying to get the students in our quadrants that wouldn't get to school naturally, thinking, how can we get everybody where we have truancy problems, we have attendance problems, and we got into the community. So this program we launched this year, so it's accessible instructional support to all students. So anybody that needs it, you can be an academically challenged student who needs extra help with their math program, or something's going on at home. I hate to use the word daycare or babysit, but something's going on at home and you need to be able to get your homework and have some resources that you don't have at home, or internet, so you come on Saturday. It is funded through IDEA and CEIS. CEIS is the early intervention grant that we got through the state of Illinois from the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities. So it's really been a blessing. Thank you, Dr. Walls and Jasenia, for making that happen for us. A total of 79 students participated. Out of those 79, 14 of them attended only one session. We began running in December, and our last session was last week. So the average number of sessions was a little over 3. 33 students attended 4 or more, and we had some, you'll see as we get through it, that showed up for almost every single session. So we'll start with winter break, going backwards. This year's program, we had 18 staff, so our staff grew. Number of students that were math only were 4. We had a total of 34 students, and the average attendance rate, these are virtual only. So this is online. Kiddos log in. It's in the morning from, we have 2 sessions. Math, I think, is from 8 to 9:30. Then there's a break, and then from 10 to 11:30, it's reading or flip, whatever the tutor decides with the family and the students. And so one of the questions, we send out surveys, and I love to say that everybody responds, but they don't. We had 8 responses from our classroom teacher, the feedback, and the students, most of them, 52% out of those, and you could respond to 3 or 4 of these at the same time. But students were engaged. They continued to complete their work. They were asking for assistance. Does everybody show up all the time? No. But the bonus is, for those that do, and our tutors are amazing, we had some, one here, and then a few earlier that were sitting in the audience, but the contact that they maintain with the classroom teachers of what's going on in the classroom, what do we need to work on over break, and giving up their mornings is just so impressive. The teacher feedback from that is, tutors are communicative. They want the program to keep running. I get asked, well, why are we going to keep it running if only half of the kids show up? Well, we can't have the kids. If we're helping somebody, I feel very strongly about that. If we've made an improvement for 2, 3, 4, granted we sent out 140 invitations and only 34 enrolled, but we've made a difference. So keeping it running, to me, is something that we should still be doing. So sometimes kids have unfinished work, some don't, and they have strategies. The tutors work really hard coordinating with families to get the information for parents or caretakers as to what they might need to work on. And then here's some other information about engaging with the teacher from the parents and getting their feedback. And I love all those, yes, we strongly agree. And we need some comments from the parents. So just things that they did while they were in class. There we go. So on to spring break, a little similar. The difference this year in spring break is all our students were signed up that did sign up. This one was closer to 150 students that we sent out. 33 enrolled. 32, our attendance dropped this spring break. A lot of it was parents emailing like, we decided to go on vacation. It's really nice out. It's all the other things, and some of it was just, we're burned out and sitting in front of a computer. and they had done some of their things on teaching and reteaching, and so one of my favorite was from one of our tutors, who's also a middle school teacher. The last comment here on the growth for this particular student when we're going to give retakes. We're going to redo something, and their grade when they went back, because I waited a little bit to send the survey out, so the kids were back in school for a little while, and the grade went up from a D to a C because they were allowed that opportunity to redo and retake. So I'm also very excited about all of that and the opportunities. And again, with the unfinished work, majority of kids had things to work on and complete from their teachers, and parent feedback and communication is wonderful between our tutors, and they build connections, and that's the other, I get a lot of emails going, well, can I ask in class, I want my classroom teacher to be the tutor. I'm so sorry your classroom teacher didn't sign up, but I know you're going to make a connection with someone else, and they do, and then they don't want to let that go. We're going to specifically do that on Saturday for our Saturday program that started in September, and we had done 80% attendance the first one, but our average attendance over all the weeks was about, what was that, about 58%. And then, spring, we've sort of dwindled. Sports, other things start happening on Saturdays. Grade level, we take everybody, which is really wonderful. Dual language we have, and I've been working with Elizabeth Sanchez-Pezzi. We've been talking about how to get some English as a second language next year on Saturdays. So trying to hit everybody, but our tutors are incredible, and they will tutor at any grade level. We have 8th grade teachers tutoring kindergartners and first graders and vice versa. So it's really fun. Come visit. And this one was how many of our kids attended how many sessions, and 47% attended every week, every session. And then, the reasons that they showed up to catch up and complete work, or something they didn't understand, or to extend and enrich their learning on something that they definitely wanted more. And parent and student, we got feedback from students. They loved the program we had. They did PE and break and some other activities because they are there from 8 to 11. So it is in the morning. And, excuse me, my asthma, my allergies are acting up, but I'm fine. So drop off and pick up we have. I want to give a shout out to Heather Rakosnik and Larissa Koloczewski, who help run that program on Saturdays. They have been amazing in just taking the lead on that, acting as administrators for the program. I know they're not here tonight. And the big push is from the classroom teachers and the feedback that they're, one of the things we wanted to know is this making an impact when you go back to the classroom? So 23 responses that students would still continue to benefit from this, and they're seeing more engagement in the classroom. They're asking for a homework booth, so we're working on that. A QR code and some of those other things for the start of school, showing up at curriculum nights, kind of getting more of the word out, and continuing to offer the program. So as long as writing grants and looking for funding. So this was new. This was another grant through ISBE, and it is not being offered again next year. This was the last of their ESSER funds, so I quickly, once it hit, broke the grant. So we launched on May 1st, 3 days a week, 90-minute sessions of high-impact, intensive tutoring. So all of our teachers, there's 25 teachers now, 25 tutors now, and 54 students enrolled. It's gone up a little bit since I submitted this last week. Same process, however, here we are assessing at the beginning. So they're doing an iStation and iReady assessments. We have to report student growth, the expectations for student growth from beginning to end of the 15-week program. So this ends right before school starts. This ends in August, and we report back to the state. It will continue through summer school. Donna has been amazing in working out transportation so that we can get these kids to school before summer school, so that they can also participate in summer school. So I'm processing through how can I do this next year without this grant, trying to figure that out. And the other new thing we did this year was that tier 2, social emotional. We partnered with Kids Hope USA. They're nationally recognized, proven program that supports those social emotional needs. So through the community, we have partnered with Lakeland Church and Village Church across the way, and they train their volunteers, their community members, to provide tutoring and mentoring. So there's a very scripted program that they follow. Church and state are completely separated. We launched at elementary this year, and I believe we're up to 4 students, five kiddos at elementary. So they will go on to with their mentor to intermediate next year, and the process will continue. And we are also adding in 5th grade and an intermediate with some of our 4th graders. So this year we'll start with our 1st graders next year. So they follow all the way through, and should they so choose, up to middle school. So that's where your questions. Well, thank you.
I just have a comment. All kinds of great things happening. I just love reading all this information and seeing how many kids are getting helped by these programs. Thank you. Anybody else?
All right, we'll move on to item C, written report on preliminary budget.
I'll turn it over to Mr. Chris Wilder.
All right. In the packet, this is the written portion of the preliminary budget. It shows you kind of the more significant items in terms of revenues and expenditures that we expect for fiscal year '24. Note on the revenue side, obviously CPI being what it is, it was our last tax levy, our 2022 tax levy, that we were at the tax cap of 5%. Once again, CPI, December CPI in 2022 was over 6%. So this November, there's the opportunity to once again exceed 5% of the tax levy, which is significant revenue. Of note is going to be our evidence-based funding. The additional dollars that they were looking to put the additional $350 million into the budget. Last year we were at 89% in terms of our evidence-based funding model. If you hit 90%, you become a Tier 3 school. And instead of sharing 49% of that $350 million in excess or extra evidence-based funding, you'll now share 0.9% of it. So we would think that our funding might go down a little bit if we got up to the 90% threshold. Typically, that's gained us about $130,000 to $170,000 a year. Sometimes that goes directly over to our charter school. So if that happens, then we might see more money get diverted to the charter school, and the percentages will be a little bit off. Investment-wise, obviously, investment rates are high right now, so that's good for us in what we are looking to invest. When we look at expenditures, we saw the staffing plan this year and the FTEs that we're looking to bring on. On top of that, the medical and dental benefits, significant increases. The PPO is up over 10%. The HMO is about 4.5%. Insurance rates, everything is going up. CPI is still high. We were at 4.9% last month. We do have some ESSER funds that we're still going to spend. ESSER goes through September of 2024. We'll probably spend about $1.9 million this year. We got to make sure that we get all of the spend in before next September. So a little bit of that will carry over into fiscal year '25. But if you have any questions, just take a peek at the report. Please let me know. And look forward to my presentation next month.
Thank you. Any questions, maybe? All right, we'll move on to item D, written report on annual fuel bid. I believe this is you again, Chris.
Every year we do a fuel bid. The fuel bid is basically just for delivery of fuel services. The reason why we bid is because, ever since I've been here, I believe the delivery charge has been a negative charge, so they've actually paid us to deliver our fuel. A lot of these places have fuel, and they are looking to make sure that they can offload the fuel all throughout the year. We average about 180,000 gallons, so they want to lock that in. They get to use the daily price that's published in whatever the fuel publishing. I have no idea what the actual sheets are for the fuel publishing, but it's the daily rate. So they lock it in. It's been negative. We've saved a couple $1,000. Obviously, we need fuel for our buses, lots of fuel for our buses. So there will be a bid, an advertisement that goes into the paper this weekend, and then we're looking to bid in early June, and we'll have it back for an action item at the June 22nd meeting.
Any questions? All right, thank you. And we'll move on to written information on revised board policies. So since we did not choose our committees at last month's meeting, we didn't have a policy committee meeting, so we decided to have these policies come to the full board. And there includes some time-sensitive changes based on Faith's law, and you have those in your packet. Are there any questions about those? So these will be back on the agenda next month to approve. All right, we'll move on to item F, receipt of any Freedom of Information Act requests. Mr. Bobek.
We have a few. From Melinda Cruce on 413, filled on 419. She was requesting Woodland School District number 50, administrative office renovations. She was looking for the bid tabulations, the name of the awarded general contractor, list of subcontractors performing, the painting, the drywalling, the finishing, the glazing, and the signage. Next FOIA is from Rexel Elzano. Requested 417, fulfilled 426. It's our Smart Work here, the one that we get quarterly, looking for our purchase order numbers, purchase dates, line item details, line item quantity, line item price, vendor ID number, name, address, contact person, and their email address. FOIA 12 from Nancy Stingle, Perkoski. That was requested on 420, filled 425. It was cam footage and or video of and all other associated components pertaining to the incident occurred on March 16, 2023 at about 8 a.m. While a student was attempting to get on bus number 31 at the bus stop located at the intersection of Line and Timber. 420, 425 was our response. As a follow-up, we had on 428, filled 5-4. Once again, cam footage and or video and all other associated components pertaining to the incident occurred on March 16, 2023 at about 8 a.m. while the student was attempting to get on the bus at Line and Timber. That one was requested as a Student Records Act. And we finally have Jamie Jordan on 425, filled on 426. Looking for a listing of all Woodland School District 50 employees' first and last names, email addresses, titles, positions, and primary campus/department locations. They wanted that provided electronically. There were some components of that we could not fill and some components that we were able to fill.
Thank you.
Those are
Any
your
questions about the FOIAs? Okay, thanks, Chris. We'll move on to board improvement and operations. And the very first item is a fun thing, Gurney Days. Dr. Machek, is this you?
So every year, the three Gurney districts, 56, 121, and District 50 support Gurney Days by volunteering in the food tent for Rib Fest. So our shift is Saturday afternoon from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. And we already have close to 20 members of our leadership team volunteering, and plenty of room for board members. If you'd like to join us, then let me know, and I'll get your name to the Ann Dalgard, the organizer, and we'll get you a T-shirt, and we'll go from there. We have, of course, Sunday is the parade for Gurney Days, and the theme this year is the golden anniversary of Gurney Days, so 50 years. And Elizabeth Sanchez-Pezzi has once again volunteered, or graciously been voluntold, to lead the float decoration, and it's always a fun time. We have we'll have a new lot of teachers and administration coming on board, and love to help. We typically work at the maintenance garage at the primary school, so we'll certainly give you. Elizabeth will have to work with her schedule to see when she's available to coordinate plans, but we'll let the board know when we're working on it and what parts we're working on, and we'd love to have your help.
Okay, so we do have a float committee, or a float.
It's a float committee. It's sort of
float effort.
Float leader.
Since I've been here, we've put out an email to say we're doing the float, and here's the days and times, and here's what we need, and people just kind of show up.
That's awesome.
I don't think has it been more formal than that?
No, I don't know.
T-shirts.
Yeah, it has in the past. I think it kind of fell off during the COVID years.
It's a lot of fun. Well, what we're doing is working because we've won it 2 years in a row. So the float contest or whatever they call it. But so yeah, it's been it's great. And I don't know if you'd like a more formal committee. We can certainly.
No, that's fine. No, I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Very good. Thank you. So I think we can move on to item B, which is a discussion of board members serving on state, local, and district committees. So at the May 10th meeting, we put this off. I put this off. And I took some notes of the committees that people wanted to serve on. Are there any other requests? Anybody have anything different? No? So I am just going to read back what I have, and you guys can let me know how you feel about it. I do intend to serve as our ISB delegate. As far as the EdRed representation, Carla, do you feel comfortable continuing to do that?
No, I don't. Someone else can have that opportunity.
Okay. I am willing to do it if needed, but is anybody else interested? Amy seems like it might be up your alley. I can do that. Okay. Legislative, lobbying topics. It's really interesting. The meetings are you get to hear some really great speakers. So for local organizations, we have the Special Education District of Lake County. I have been serving in that role. Gigi, would you?
That's fine.
Somebody mentioned that you would be interested. Would you like to do that? Okay. All right. And I can. We can meet and just talk about kind of what to expect. There's kind of a lot to know.
Perfect.
And the very first meeting is the budget meeting, which is a little. It's a lot. It's a lot to know. And then for the district committees, policy committee. We didn't really discuss, although Renee, I think you said you wanted to stay on the policy committee. And then I think Brianna and myself will be joining. Is it, if we have 3 people, we just need to notice the meetings, right?
I think because they're committee meetings, that we had this discussion with legal, and because they're not officially, they're district committees and board committees, but I will double check. I mean, we haven't posted anything in the past about them.
Okay.
You have. There you go. We'll continue to post.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure that we wanted 3 people on that. And then finance and facilities, I have Corey and Amy. Does that sound right? Okay. And Woodland Educational Foundation, I have Gigi and Brianna. And for the PTA, Brianna will continue to be our representative. And Amy, would you be willing to be an alternate for that?
Yes.
Okay. And Gigi, I can be your alternate for CEDAW. They frequently have a few times over the past couple of years I've been going to those meetings, had not been able to have a quorum there, so it's really important to let them know if we're coming so they know their numbers. So I could be backup for you on that if you ever need me to go. And I think that's it. Any questions? Okay. We'll move on to reviewing or discuss ISB delegate assembly resolutions for 2023. We have in the past, you have copies in your packet of the ones that we have submitted in the past. Is there a desire to continue to submit those? The date for submission is June 21st. Our next meeting is on June 22nd. Laura spoke with somebody at ISB, and they said they are okay with us submitting on June 22nd. So we can have those at the next meeting if anybody has, is interested in submitting those.
You wouldn't submit the ones that are in the packet. Those have already been adopted.
Right.
So you wouldn't resubmit them. They would be something new.
Yes.
We
right.
would need new resolutions.
Yes. If we wanted new resolutions. we could
Right.
submit them in
They're
June.
already adopted. They're already a part of the position statements for IASB, so you wouldn't keep resubmitting them.
Mhm.
No, we updated them. We didn't resubmit. That's why last year they explained that we don't keep resubmitting, because we shouldn't. It's been adopted as a resolution. It's now included in a lot of the position statements by IASB. There's nothing more to be done. So you have to come up with, if you want to submit something, come up with new resolutions.
So Carla, I mean, you have more experience with that one. Like, would you recommend that we like modify them and like expand
If anything's
them?
new, but I think.
Nothing's really changed with these.
Yeah.
So but they have documentation. They know it's still something.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because I just read them real quick. I'm like, I'd like to keep
Yeah, you
pushing
don't.
those.
You don't do that.
Okay. So you
Yeah,
don't,
they're already a part of the position statements. If you go and read the position statements and belief statements of IASB, it's already
they're already there.
included.
Okay.
Well, I think our goal at this point, as it relates to Prairie Crossing
Yeah.
and state authorized charter school funding, we need to be working with our legislators.
Okay.
IASB, and including IASB in that, but we don't, the positions, or the resolutions are done.
Okay.
Mhm.
Last spring or early summer, Chris and I went to the meeting in Naperville to address the legislative group about the Prairie Crossing resolution, and they're very supportive and very sympathetic, but they kind of like jokingly said, well, you've come to us with this like 4 or 5 times, and we agree with you 4 or 5 times, and you need legislative action at this point.
But each time we went, we brought a new aspect of the charter school funding. Last year, we submitted the same resolutions, and it looks like this year we're trying to do the same thing. We can't do that. We update it based on what was new.
Right. Let's move on to item 3, discussion of attendance at the joint annual conference, November 17th.
Yeah, and
19th?
before we move forward, I was going to say, I don't want to take a role on any of the committees, but I will plan to attend the meetings as I can, based on my schedule, so make sure those are published, please.
All right, so joint annual conference is November 17th through 19th. We have to register starting June 5th. And the hotels fill up quickly, so if you could let Laura know if you will be attending. And also for those of you who are new, you may not know that the pre-conference workshops fill up quickly as well. They're really good, but they do fill up quickly. So if you're interested in those, you definitely want to be ready to sign up as soon as we can. And then every year we talk about which hotel we'd like to be in. Typically we've stayed in the Fairmont. Does anybody have any different feelings? Think we should switch?
No, I looked at, the rates, and Fairmont was the second least expensive, with the least expensive one being across the river.
Mhm.
So I thought Fairmont was.
And it's only a few dollars.
Yeah, it's like $2. So I thought Fairmont would be the way to go.
All right, good. Amy and Gigi, just so you guys know, I am working on putting together some information for you guys about the conference. It's there's a lot to know for the first time that you're there, and so we will have kind of a cheat sheet for you on how everything works, and what to expect, and if you have any questions, just let me know. I'm not a pro, but I've been twice. All right. And then are there any requests for future items to be placed on the agenda?
Not future, but I have a question or two. So I know we set the meeting dates for next year. When will we know the official schedule? Because there's a meeting that falls on Thanksgiving, if we follow the 4th, one during winter break and one during spring break. So when will we know what those adjusted dates would be if they are moved?
Do you know what we've I remember the Thanksgiving, we usually meet the week before, right?
Well, the week before was, and then, because that, some board members actually go to III on that Thursday, pre-conference thing, so that would impact that if we did it the week before.
I think, aren't they all on Friday? The pre-conference things?
Yeah, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's a 4-day, yeah. There might be some Wednesday too.
I didn't realize that.
Maybe, it might be like for certain, like superintendents, certain roles, stuff like that. Not as much board members.
Which were the other ones, Brianna? So it was November?
It was November, December, and March.
So December, we could do the week before, I think, right? Having computer troubles. Give me a sec.
I mean, I know at least the last 2 years they were bumped to the week before, but I didn't know if that was a standard or.
Since I've been here, they've been before. The November one, there's an implication with the levy. It's got to happen a certain amount of time after the October one. So the week before always falls in line with that levy implication.
Okay. So can we plan on doing then the 16th of November and the 21st of December, and then March is spring break, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be, we'd be doing, the 21st would be the week before. Does that sound okay to everybody? Okay. Very good. Easy peasy. I do have, for the agenda, future agenda item, Brianna brought to my attention that there are some policies that we have regarding committees that we should have in the district that we don't currently have, including, what was it, a
Parent-teacher advisory.
Parent-teacher advisory, and the other was discipline. Discipline. So I'd like for us to discuss those at the next meeting and how we can move forward on those.
And I would like to re-ask that adding a student voice to the board be on a future agenda item, especially with one of the Friday workshops being at the conference is where student ambassadors are invited to attend, as well as districts that have student voices. And I did email the contact person, and I'm like, we don't have a student voice on the board. We might decide to add one. Like, would this workshop be appropriate? And she said, absolutely. So.
Okay. All right. Anything else for future agenda items?
Not for future, but I'm, in the presence of time, do you not want me to give the PTA update? Because there's a PTA meeting today.
Oh, I didn't know. We just apparently blew right past that. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Yeah, please.
All right, so we're going to have a new PTA president starting on July 1. It's the current vice president, Stephanie. They talked about how well the book fairs all did during open houses. Supply packs are for sale online, so parents who want to jump ahead, go online. There's a tentative date on June 9th for another Spiritware swap and popsicle play date at Warren Township Park. This was the last meeting of the year, so nothing over the summer, so watch their Facebook page and website for what the fall schedule will be. There's one more fundraiser at Oberweis on June 6th, so the last day of school, and you do have to mention the PTA. The annual calendar contest is still open for submissions, and that ends June 2nd. So you have through June 2nd to submit. And the sad news is due to nobody stepping up to chair and lack of volunteers, they will not be doing the Roar Run this fall. So they might do it in spring, they might do it next fall, but right now they don't have the people to plan it.
I think when we were at the middle school the other day, I think I remember seeing that the deadline for school supply packs is like June 6th, I think, the last day. Don't quote me on that, but it's soon.
Yeah, they didn't mention at the meeting, I should have looked that up.
All right, thank you.
That's it, that's all I have.
Let's move on to.
Oh, I have something. I signed up for CUBE. I sent you the information to sign up for CUBE. Were you able to do that?
I have not done it yet. It's been a really busy week this week. It is on my list of things to do though.
Okay.
I know that you can sign up for it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's move on
And I
to.
think there was another conference, but I'll send the information. Have to look into it.
Status of correspondence. We've had a lot of correspondence. I don't think there were any that we needed to approve.
No, there were,
Responses for. Oh, yes.
yeah, there were
it's been
several that
updated.
asked for a response.
Okay.
There was one email that was not in the packet, so I'm not sure if it was responded to.
That was about the primary parking.
Yes,
Oh, yes.
so I don't know if a response was sent already.
We had some discussion about that, right?
No, it was suggested to bring it up here. I'm not, I mean, in my mind, it would be a very simple response in that that project's been budgeted and on schedule for the summer. I could write it and send it to you.
Perfect. Yes.
I mean, unless I'm missing something, is John still here?
Is that not?
Did you get him?
We need to provide a response to a question about the status of the primary parking lot in terms of working on it this summer, like what the scope of the project, the timeline, or?
Yeah, it's on schedule to start June 7th with a substantial completion by August 1st. That's for both primary and elementary lots. It's covering about 60%, 65% of both those lots combined with the balance to be done subsequent year.
Okay.
You want a description of approximately where? Or?
Sure.
Okay. For primary, essentially you go from the KLC entrance to the west. Okay. The whole front of the school, the east side to the back playground and back to the gym in the back. So you're getting that 60% sweep of that part done. So KLC can still operate through the west drive and that west band of the building and still use that section of the building for the summer. Elementary is going from plus lot A in the back, wrapping around the whole back of that school to that lower east lot in the front. And that's taking care of about 60% of that, leaving the front parking lot open for construction for the office and some such testing that we were talking about before. Yeah, that should take care of the bulk of that. So that one section will be getting done next year.
Thank you.
I think most of the emails that asked for a response had to do with the middle school issue. So I think we could respond to those.
I tweaked the one that you sent.
Yes, that was the only one that was not about the middle school. So I sent a response to Mr. Salerno, and then he asked for further response from the board.
I did, the one from Tuesday, I did send you a draft to review for Ms. Fournier.
Oh, my goodness, okay.
So, and she had 5 bullet points that she wanted the status of 5 issues, and I updated those and sent them to you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay, I will do that. But otherwise, I think we can respond to the emails about the middle school with some information. I think the information that was shared last night at the event was really good, and I think is something that we could share with everybody who's written. And also just, now we have another meeting on the books to talk about discipline. I think we can share that as well. Sound okay? Okay. Let's move on to citizen statements. Laura, do we have more citizen statements? Thank you, Brooke. We have Tracy Mann. She's still here? Gone? Okay. All right.
I will finish my citizen statement at this time, please.
No, we're not doing that, Carla. You had 2 minutes like everybody else gets. We're done.
No, you can't deny my right to freedom of
Anna,
speech.
she can speak again.
You can't do that.
She has the ability to speak again as a public.
Okay, well, I'm not going to sit here and listen to it, so.
Anna.
Okay. Well, I will go back and begin where I left off with my citizen statement again. I'm very concerned about the culture in the district. I believe that's an example of what we just saw. I mentioned that once Anna got on the board, she initiated this campaign against several of the board members. I think I left off where Anna initiated a very personal and targeted campaign against a board member. She provided misinformation and lies to her friends and online followers, inciting them to write letters in support of her views to the board. She wrote the letters for the followers as a template, a form letter to send to the board. This created a situation that got out of control with us having to bring in legal counsel, which cost the district money. Then Anna blamed the other board member for incurring the cost. Like I said, Anna's a bully. She has exhibited a host of racial and bigoted tendencies while serving on the board. I don't think her mentality is in the best interest of our black and our brown children or any child that she perceives as other or different from her. I don't think her mentality is the best interest of our diverse staff members as she has targeted them as she's been on the board. Overall, Anna's racist and bigoted bullying behavior is contrary to what we try to exemplify as a district, what we hold our teachers and our staff accountable to, and what we teach our children. Further, there's allegations that Anna conspired with the previous administration to prevent her child from being disciplined for drawing guns and threatening to shoot up the school. I think this should be investigated and ruled out if it's not true. But if true, it's an abuse of power. Obviously, it violates clear ethics laws, and it also puts our kids in jeopardy. So those are my concerns. I just think we have to do better as a board.
Thank you, that's your 2 minutes. Your
We have
time
to
is
set
up.
an
We're going to move
example
on.
for all of our
Carla,
children.
is there any
Let me
need to
finish.
return
You
to
don't have
closed
the right to
session?
just close me off right now.
You
I am a
agree-
board member.
we all- the
and let me
policy says
finish.
2 minutes.
See? Exactly. That's
2
what I'm saying,
minutes.
the bullying. Okay. Prove my point.
Telling you what our policy says is not bullying. So
That's-
we're going to move on to, is there any need to return to closed session? I don't think so. Okay. All right, seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
And I will send this Can so we, that it goes do we into need the a roll record call of the vote meeting. Yeah, okay.
Carla? Well, we adjourned.
Aye.
Renee? Yes. Brianna?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Gary? Yes. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you to everyone that stayed.